Good evening, everyone, or rather, good morning. Welcome to Tonight in America. I am your host, Dontaris Jones, and we have an exciting show tonight for you. Our feature story, we are reviewing, or rather reacting to, Nick Fuentes versus Piers Morgan debate slash interview. It's talk of the town right now since it's happened on Monday. So I'm going to give my reaction to it, gonna review everything, just honestly just watch it with you guys. I've already watched it, but I'm just gonna watch it on the channel for the most part, and then pause here or there and give some commentary or whatever. And then our other stories we're covering tonight, we're basically giving an update on the Minnesota welfare fraud scandal, which is one of the biggest to come out of Minnesota and one of the most disappointing, quite frankly, because we let a bunch of pirates come in here and basically just steal from under us. So we're going to get into that. We're going to give an update, going to how many people have been criminally convicted, arrested, and just go over like the complete timeline of everyone that was involved and how long has this been going on and how long have the FBI been investigating this fraud scheme. And then we're also going to cover, I'm going to also cover the January 6th pipe bomber who has finally been identified and arrested. And then we're also going to react to a little funny clip from CNN who labeled the guy a white guy and the guy's black. And big props to the deputy director, Dan Bongino, who led the charge in arresting this guy, because he's been talking about this guy since he was still podcasting. Now that he's got his big boy bridges on and he's doing, law enforcement work again, federal law enforcement work, he has arrested a guy that he's been talked about wanting to go after since his podcasting days. So we're going to cover all that and some more. Just want to remind you, smash the like button, leave a comment, let me know how you guys like about the show. Pull up my notes. Okay, so gonna go over a couple little bit of articles. So from Associated Press News, Trump comments on the Somali community and fraud prosecutions. President Trump has made controversial remarks about Minnesota's Somali community, linking them to large-scale fraud cases involving federal nutrition funds, particularly Feeding Our Future and other programs. So far, 78 people have been charged, and most are of Somali descent, though the alleged ringleader was a white woman, allegedly. Federal prosecutors say fraud, spin nutrition, and other benefit programs. There's no confirmed link of stolen funds to terrorist groups. This one's from factcheck.org. Clarifying the fraud figures and community links, Trump reference claims that Somali families ripped off Minnesota and suggest extremely high welfare reliance. Federal data show the majority of people charged in 3 federal fraud schemes in Minnesota are Somali, but White House figures were unverified. Prosecutors say the main vulnerabilities were low documentation standards in social service programs. And now we're also about to react to, in a minute, the CBS News Ilhan Omar interview with Face the Nation. Now, this is a quote from Ilhan Omar about the events that took place in Minnesota about this welfare fraud involving a bunch of Somalis, and how she has blamed the FBI about not finding the connections back to terrorism, because it's alleged that some of these Somalians who were committing this fraud were sending most of the profit back home to Somalia to fund Al-Shabaab, a designated terrorist group that is operating out in Somalia. So this is from Ilhan Omar. Rep. Ilhan Omar says claims our stolen money from the fraud cases went to terrorism are unfounded. If there was a link of stolen money going to terrorism, it would be a failure of the FBI and court system not to have uncovered it, she said. So she's basically downplaying it, saying that there is really no claims, no nothing like that, because like she doesn't see no found claim that there's shipping money off to Al Shabaab, even though technically speaking there probably is connections to that, which there are very much a lot of connections to that fact that there is funding sending back to Somalia. And you all know some funny, the Somalian government also is not shying away from this too, by the people and the government officials were having a rally confirming that they were getting money shipped back to Somalia. Now, of course, that is not the terrorist organization. It's two different things we're talking about, but it's also key and important to realize that the government is also aware of this fraud, which was going on in the United States, which means that they were also getting some type of incentive from this. And then they was also boasting about like the Somalians and they be taken care of, screw Americans, whatever. It's Somalians first and foremost, which begs the question, they already don't come here. They already don't assimilate. They already don't get accustomed to the culture, and they want to bring their shithole culture here. Why do you want to live here? It seems like your government's fully backing you because they're getting some type of incentive from you by coming here to this country and taking advantage of our resources, our welfare, and our finances to supply just only your people, while Americans don't get a lick of that. Bad enough they already come here, they already abuse the welfare system to where the increase in welfare incentives is very apparent because we have so many immigrants that come here and go to the hospital just for every little thing. But let's go ahead and react to Ilhan Omar's this is a clip from the interview that she did with Face the Nation, where I just read her quote right there. But we're also going to hear from her mouth herself about how she says that there is no trying to downplay the links of the funding going to a terrorist group in Somalia, and says that if there is a link, then it's on the failures of the FBI to figure out this stuff.
And we're joined now by Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Margaret.
We have a lot to get to with you, but I want to pick up on where the Treasury Secretary just left off. He alleged that people who were tied to you or your campaign were involved in this broad, brazen scheme to rip off the Minnesota state welfare system. Do you want to respond to that? Do you know what he is referring to?
I really don't, and I don't think the Secretary himself understands what he's referring to. We obviously had people who were able to donate to our campaign that were involved. We sent that money back a couple years ago. And actually, I was one of the first members of Congress to send a letter to the Secretary of Ag asking them to look into what I thought was a reprehensible fraud that was occurring within the program.
So this was, just for our audience, the Biden-era Justice Department called it the largest COVID fraud scheme in the country. And this was pocketing COVID-era welfare funds, more than $1 billion in taxpayer money that was stolen. It was pretty shocking. Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating.
She said they could have benefited. They did actually benefit from this program. Like, it's clear that she's trying to run the safe face or whatever, that maybe there were more people involved that were of Somali descent. It seems like she's trying to downplay that maybe there were more Somalians involved, or maybe that it's more like on the lines of like collective punishment, that maybe all of them were involved. I'm not talking about the little kids, of course. I'm talking about all grown adults that can operate and function, whatever. It's very clear that this whole operation was just strictly like a Somalian operation, even though the alleged leader was a white woman, which I don't think there was we haven't seen any photos of this woman yet, to my knowledge. I haven't seen no photos yet. But to sit here and to say that the Somalians could have benefited from this, they were benefited from this. There's no evidence that they were not getting any incentives from this. Like, there's no evidence that all the people that were perpetrating in this big scam were not strictly just trying to feed the Somali community exclusively, and not all the other Americans that were also around. Like, all these politicians that are operating in Minnesota, especially Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz, are been doing a media run, trying to run cover and try to save face right now. Jacob Fry is trying to also do his part and try to save face for the Somali community by dining with them, eating their trash food, and at least trying to appear to like the food, of course. But right now, it's just not a good look for the entire community. This is kind of why everyone that's an American nationalist is calling for these people to literally just to lose their citizenship or just go home. Even the ones that actually have citizenship here don't want them here, including Ilhan Omar, who's, since she's been here, has always talked shit about America. Since she's been here, she always talks so much crap about America. Always. She never has anything good to say about America because it's not a progressive society. It's not a socialist communist society where we're worshiping these people's grounds and tell them not to assimilate and just accept their culture and eat their trash food, you know, and believe in these weird, strange forms of piracy, you know, not like the Captain Jack Sparrow, no, like the Captain Phillips. Look at me, I'm the captain now piracy. So
for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
Mm-hmm. So do you think, though, that there was a failure by the Democratic state government to police itself? This is a brazen, fraudulent activity here.
Yeah, and that is what I alluded to in my letter that I'd sent to the Secretary of Eg, was to see where things were going wrong. How can this amount of money disappear fraudulently without there being alarms being set off? And it is something that, we have to continue to investigate. We have to continue to ask those questions.
Because, as you know, one of the initial defenses by the organization at the heart of the fraud, Feeding Our Future, was to claim the probe was due to racism. Do you think that this was all about negligence, or that it was like political fear of alienating the Somali community?
So you have to remember that the woman who led the program is a Caucasian woman. And that was her way of making sure that
she's going to try to pin it on the white woman. They're going to try to hang her dry and said that she was the one leading all of this. And it has nothing. The Somalians were just going along with the ringleader. The white woman was the mastermind of all of this. Ilhan Omar, his biggest hatred is always the white woman. Even though this white woman that allegedly is the leader of this was probably a liberal and probably loves the Somali community more than anything. There's nothing more dangerous than a liberal white woman, because once they take the side of these people and try to advocate, says they're people too. Well, no one's not saying they're not people. It's just that they're greedy, they're whiny, and they're criminals. So no one's not saying they're not people. It's just that they're greedy, whiny criminals. Or let me change criminal to pirates. They're greedy, whiny pirates.
This would continue to happen by using whatever rhetoric that was available to her. We do know that when the money was stopped, they did sue. The AG, Attorney General Keith Ellison, defended the department in that lawsuit. It was a judge that said it should continue, that money should continue to go out. And so this wasn't something that people were not looking at. There was always those alarms, and we will continue to understand where things might have gone wrong as these investigations continue and as these fraudsters are prosecuted and sent to jail.
Well, it's going to have impact for your community, because we've already heard the head of Medicare and Medicaid say they're going to have a new policy that applies to Minnesota. You heard the Treasury Secretary say they're investigating. But there's another thread here, because House Republicans and the Treasury Secretary just now talked about a link to terrorism, a possible link.
We should pull all medical funding, any federal funding to Minnesota right now until we arrest everyone, quite frankly. We should just pull all of it. Like, this is insane that this happened. This is one of the biggest fraud cases in years, maybe ever, quite frankly. And this happened underneath our nose.
He said they're just now beginning to look into it. How confident are you that that's a false claim?
I'm pretty confident at the moment, because there are people who have been prosecuted and who have been sentenced. If there was a linkage in the money that they have stolen going to terrorism, then that is a failure of the FBI and our court system in not figuring that out and basically charging them with these charges. And so I do know that for many years, this sort of like alarm that there is money being transferred through the airport in bags and going to terrorism, that accusation has always existed. There's never been here and there in those accusations. But if that is the case, if money from U.S. tax dollars is being sent to help with terrorism in Somalia, we want to know.
Yeah.
And we want those people prosecuted. And we want to make sure that that doesn't ever happen again.
So there are 80,000 people of Somali descent in your state, but the president has been very focused, not just on them, but on you. In this extraordinary cabinet meeting, he said Somalis, quote, come from hell. They complain and they do nothing but bitch. Take a
Yes,
listen.
they do.
These are people that do nothing but complain. They complain. And from where they came from, they got nothing. We don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it. Thank you very much.
That knocking is vehement agreement from his cabinet members there. I just wonder what the reaction is in your district to have that from the highest office in the land.
It's disgusting. It's completely disgusting. These are Americans that he is calling garbage. And we feel like there is an unhealthy obsession that he has on the Somali community and an unhealthy and creepy obsession that he has with me. I think it is also really important for us to remember that this kind of hateful rhetoric and this level of dehumanizing can lead to dangerous actions by people who listen to the president.
And 95% of the Somalis in your state are U.S. citizens.
Yes.
Just for clarity there. But the president has restricted all immigration processing, including asylum claims from Somalis already on U.S. soil, along with 18 other countries. ICE reports it has rounded up about 19 people, and they put out press releases with the images of about 5 of them that they say are the worst of the worst. Is that the entirety of the crackdown to date?
Yeah, so far we know of the people that they've picked up in Minnesota. About 5 of them are Somalis. And from what I have read and from the people that I've spoken to, all of them had already had orders of removal. So these are not people who are undocumented, but people who have committed crimes and who should have already been sent out of the country.
I want to ask you about something else that the architect of the president's immigration policy, Stephen Miller, said. On Thanksgiving Day, he posted, no magic transformation occurs when failed states cross borders. At scale, migrants and their descendants recreate the conditions and terrors of their broken homelands. What do you make of this argument of failure to assimilate and sort of ruining America? How do you understand this?
I mean, when I think about Stephen Miller and his white supremacist rhetoric, it reminds me of the way the Nazis described Jewish people.
Ian Omar probably looks like Stephen Miller as a white guy and he's a Jewish guy. Like, that's crazy. A white supremacist rhetoric. Like, these people really think assimilate is like a form of white supremacy. Like, peace times have really made us all retarded right now. It's made America so fucking retarded, bro. Since World War II, when we, after a little bit afterwards, when we won the war and then went into the Cold War, you know, those were some of the most, I say, masculine years in America when men were in charge. Women weren't hardly working. They were doing what they were supposed to do. And now since then, we've gone from letting in so many immigrants, women being attending college at a high rate, soy boys on the rise. We're prioritizing trash cultures over above else instead of prioritizing the safety of Americans, and prioritize the growth of America. And bringing in a bunch of immigrants is definitely not leading to the growth of America. It's actually leading to the destruction of America. You know, there's nothing more dangerous than liberals, communists, and socialists that come here and think that we can just change our system that works for us, the free market, capitalism, and just turn it into a communist country like China and think that we would be prosperous afterwards. I don't see that. No. People like Ian Omar wants to probably turn this into like Somalia, a wasteland, quite frankly. You know, so much pillaging, so much plundering, so much robbing, so much stealing, so much chopping people's heads off and put them on spikes. All that stuff happens in Somalia because they have so much low IQ and they're savages there. So it's no surprise they come here and then they don't want to assimilate and they just want to commit fraud and just steal from us. But don't worry, but you got your leader, which is pathetic. It's a woman in position sitting up here saying that it's not all the Somalian communities. Don't give them collective punishment. Don't look at all the Somalis and sit here and say that it's all their fault. In reality, to me, it looks like it is majority at fault for this. I'm not going to sit here and just say it's not all Somalians, but it's probably the staggering majority. And who's to say it's not all anyways? You know, this case is still going on right now. Who's to say this is just all of them? There's probably way more involved in this scheme. And who's to say that they were not taking care of all the Somalian community only and leaving out just Americans that weren't getting the basic needs that they require. This could have helped a lot of Americans out that needed food, needed health care. Not the scam, of course, but what the messages of this organization was supposed to be. It was supposed to help the community, but instead it was stealing from it to fund a one singular community. And now you got these politicians got to sit up here. These cocksuckers are trying to sit up here and try to say, oh, it's not even that. It's not all of us. This could have really benefited the Somalian community, if anything. It probably already was benefited the Somalian community. So I don't believe Ilhan Omar, quite frankly. I mean, like, hey, I'm pretty sure Americans are pretty much done with Somalians. We just want them to go home at this point. It's time for them to return home. It's time for them to go get on their pirate ships, and it's time to go set sails on the sea and go look for the One Piece or something. It's time to go home.
In Germany. And, you know, as we know, there have been many immigrants who've tried to come to the United States who've turned back, you know, one of them being Jewish immigrants. We know the way that people were described who were coming from Ireland, Irish immigrants. We know the way in which people were described back then when they were Italian immigrants. And to me, you know, we're yes, of course, ethnically Somali. We are in this country as Americans. Yeah. We are citizens. We are productive part of this nation.
They're foreign invaders. Sitting here and saying that you're productive, sitting here saying you're American citizens, assimilating is not being American citizens. You're just being here. You're just a refugee, a foreign national, an invader. So as we go on back on to my notes right here, let me pull them up. All right, so this is from Fox News. Political scrutiny and fraud scale. Lawmakers have called the fraud a complex, stacked operation with estimates tied to nearly $1 billion in public benefits fraud involving Minnesota's Somali population. Public officials are criticizing Democrats for oversight failures. Now, this is from Newsweek and other outlets. National reporting and expanding on the background of fraud tied to COVID-era federal funds, especially the nonprofit Feeding Our Future, which claimed to feed children, but allegedly misused federal money for other purposes. The story has gained political traction and national attention. So let's go down right here. So the Feeding Our Future case, okay? So these are key facts about the Feeding Our Future case. One of the largest COVID-era federal nutrition fraud cases in U.S. history. Hundreds of millions were claimed in federal reimbursement for meals that were allegedly not delivered. Excuse me. Dozens of defendants have been charged. Many have pleaded guilty or been convicted. Broader benefit fraud investigations. Federal prosecutions include multiple schemes, nutrition, housing, Medicaid, autism services, and other social services. Numbers involved. Reports cite 78 charged, 59 convicted so far in overall probe. That is, wow, that's a lot. A lot were already, so you got 78 that were charged and 59 already convicted. So that means we still have more that are still waiting to see what their fates are, but it's clear that almost every one of them is going to be charged. I think one got his charges overturned so far, which is kind of insane. Looking at the scope of this case, they all should have been criminally charged and found guilty. But I digress. So as my notes go on, total estimated fraud across schemes have been described in political commentary as approaching or exceeding $1 billion. Figure contested. That's from Fox News. Allegations of terrorism links. All right, so this right here goes over the alleged terrorist links that are tied to this big fraud scheme. Some commentators and federal investigators have alarms about alleged misuse of fraud proceeds internationally, but no terrorism charges have been filed and no proven direct connection yet publicly confirmed. All right. Some online claims overseas terrorism funding are unproven as of the latest reporting and should not be treated as verified facts. That's from Associated Press News. Okay. All right. So now we are going to go over into the timeline of the Minnesota welfare Feeding Our Future fraud cases. So we're going to go over the arrest timelines of everything that's happened since 2019 to 2025. So 2019 to 2021 are the administrative actions and investigations. So pre-2020, Feeding Our Future begins operating, as a sponsor of federal child nutrition program sites in Minnesota, including bogus meal sites. So spring 2021, Minnesota Department of Education refers suspected fraud by Feeding Our Future to the FBI, triggering a federal investigation. That's from PolitiFact. February 2022, federal agents conduct raids across Minnesota as part of the ongoing fraud probe. All right, so now we are moving on to 2022. Major federal charges. September 10th, 2022, 47 defendants charged. Prosecutors unseal indictments charging 47 individuals with fraud in the Feeding Our Future scheme. 30 plus counts alleging false meal claims to defraud federal nutrition funds. That's from Reddit. Charges include wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. That's also from Reddit. 2023, guilty pleas in Feeding Our Future. December 14, 2023, guilty plea. So, all right, and the one that was found, one of the perpetrators that pled guilty was named Ahmed Sharif Omar Hashim. Pleads guilty in U.S. District Court to wire fraud tied to feeding program false claims, admitting to defrauding the child nutrition program of more than $7 million. That's from the Department of Justice. June 14th, 2023, other guilty plea, restaurant owner. A Minnesota restaurant owner pleads guilty in a related Feeding Our Future fraud kickback scheme, wire fraud, restitution ordered. That's from Reddit. 2024, trials and mixed verdicts. On June 7th, 2024, jury trial verdicts. First major federal trial, a jury convicts 5 of 7 defendants on wire fraud, money laundering charges. 2 defendants are acquitted, from Reddit. All right. And now we are on to this recent year, 2025. Convictions, guilty pleas, and new indictments. January 24th, 2025, major sentencing. So Mohammed Sharif is sentenced to 210 months, 17.5 years for his role in the Feeding Our Future fraud after a June 2024 trial conviction on conspiracy, wire fraud, and money laundering counts. Restitution order. That's from the IRS. All right. And we have 2 more Somalians that were convicted. This one's on March 19, 2025. Convictions at trial. Feeding Our Future founder, Amy Block. Block, I believe. Yep. Amy Block. This is the alleged ringleader of the operation, and Salem Saeed are convicted on all counts at trial. Dates prior, DOJ press reported. This is from Wikipedia. We have 4 Somalians that were convicted on August 4th, 2025. Additional guilty pleas, of course, as it says right here, plead guilty to charges in the scheme. This brings the conviction count to over 50 pleas so far in the case. That's reported from the IRS. All right. Now, August 7th, 2025, landmark sentencing. Sharif Farah is sentenced to 28 years in prison, the longest sentence handed down in the Feeding Our Future fraud prosecutions, in order to pay approximately $48 million in restitution. Wow, insane. And and lastly, to finish it off, November 24th, 2025, 78th defendant charged. U.S. U.S. Attorney's Office files an indictment charging Biloxi Doyle as the 78th defendant in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme. That's from the Department of Justice. So right now, I got some statistics up here. So as you know, 78 people in total have been arrested and charged, and we have 59 convictions. Major citizens include 28 years Farah and 17.5 years Sharif. All right. And now let's get over to exactly when did the FBI know about this? Of course, so the FBI involvement came in 2021. State flag suspicion claims FBI begun probe. Of course, that's from PolitiFact. The indictments, initial group of defendants charged, later expanded to dozens more on Reddit. Trials and pleas 2023 to 2025. Mixed results. Many guilty pleas, multiple convictions at trial, and numerous sentencing hearings. That's from the IRS. And continued prosecutions. Additional indictments and plea agreements. High profile long prison sentences. That's from that's in 2025. So, all right. So we've gone all over everything right there. Now let's get back into this. Now we are done with Ilhan Omar. Now we're going to get into one of the reporters who broke this fraud scheme that took place in Minnesota.
I am shocked, and I know a lot of people that are watching will be shocked to hear that there's fraud in a government program. But starting from, say, the 30,000-foot level, give us an overview. What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so there is a massive problem with systemic fraud in the state of Minnesota when it comes to government welfare programs. We're talking about billions of dollars that have been defrauded in recent years. The situation has gotten so bad that there are entire government programs where the U.S. Attorney's Office has indicated the fraud outstrips the legitimate claims. When it comes to the fraud rings that have been exposed to date, these crimes have been heavily concentrated in Minnesota's Somali community, and this has kind of been an open secret in the state for quite some time. But something that progressive politicians, kind of progressive media, was really loath to admit in terms of what was going on. And then as part of our investigation at City Journal, we spoke to a number of political sources, law enforcement sources, counterterrorism sources, and people indicated to us that millions of dollars in stolen American taxpayers have been sent abroad, and that some of this money had inadvertently ended up in the hands of Al-Shabaab, the Al-Qaeda affiliate.
Well, inadvertently, perhaps, right? I mean, because those that are siphoning.
Like I mentioned earlier, there are the connections that are there. Ilhan Omar is going off on air and say there's no connections to where there is possible terrorist funding. They are there. And she says there's not on file. And some of these news agencies that are running cover that are saying there's no connections at all. Like, lost track of my thoughts right there. Sorry about that. But I mean, like some of these news agencies that are running cover and saying that there is no possible connection to Al-Shabaab, there is connections right there. And like this guy's about to go over and explain to you how this is the case, because he's one of the first ones that broke this, one of the whistleblowers. We also have, I should have brought up the other one too as well. He's on X, but of course, if there's more, we're probably going to cover this more, honestly speaking, because this seems like it's not going to die down probably for like another week or so, because there's no telling how many people are involved in this fraud scheme.
Off this money and then sending it back to Somalia. I'm assuming, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming we don't really know their intent or motivations. And so some of those individuals may well have known that Al-Shabaab would then be taking a portion of this money. They would be taking basically a tax on that money.
That's fair to say. I wouldn't be able to prove, we didn't include it in our article, the claim that, yes, this money was specifically defrauded with the express purpose of fundraising for Al-Shabaab. We can't justify that claim, but regardless, we can't rule it out as a possibility. And the bottom line is either way, Al-Shabaab's getting a cut, whether or not they're intending for that to be the case or not.
Right. No, I appreciate the objectivity there. You don't see that very often. So what are we talking about in terms of dollars? Do we know yet?
So we don't know the total dollar figure here. There are whistleblowers in the DHS in Minnesota who say, it could be as bad as 6.5 billion. But I think what's safe to say is we're talking about billions of dollars. And on numerous occasions, the U.S. Attorney's Office has indicated, these three major fraud rings that have been exposed to date, we're talking about $1 billion there. And when it comes to the true scope of the fraud, it is in the billions. But in terms of, what is the exact final dollar figure going to be here, we don't currently know. We might not ever know.
And there's so many questions here to ask, Ryan, so I apologize if I seem to be all over the map here. But, but again, kind of looking at a distance and saying, okay, tell us the infrastructure of this. When does it appear that this started? Is there a way to say, look, it appears as if this scheme, although I don't know that scheme gives it a fair enough sort of context, but when did it start?
Well, I mean, fraud in government welfare programs would have been going on for decades. I'm
What?
sure.
Wait! I've got my shock face on again. Hold on, we have some time.
It's certainly a long-standing problem, but at least what sources told me was that they felt like it started to get much worse around 2010. Not to the kind of crisis level that we've reached now, but things had started to pick up a bit of steam. And then I think a real kind of critical moment is COVID, where you just have more money flying out the door than ever before, and you have some of these programs that are specifically designed to have very few guardrails under the idea that, look, it's an emergency, we have to have low barriers to entry, we've got to get money into the hands of people who need it. So the programs, when you take a look at them, some of them almost seem to have been specifically designed in order to facilitate fraud. And so I think the fraud predates COVID, but then it accelerates in that point in time, and it continues.
Yeah, I have heard some comments. I think they're probably initial comments from Representative Ilhan Omar. And I believe they were yesterday, at some point in the past day or two, she was addressing this issue. And her response, which was very wordy, was essentially, well, it was the pandemic, and essentially saying what you're saying. We had no guardrails because, well, we had to work so quickly. And I'm thinking, you can work quickly, and you can work efficiently, and you can work effectively. Those things are not mutually exclusive, right? But, and again, I'm not saying that that's an uncommon response from government. And I know, I think the problem here will be that when you talk about something like this, defrauding the taxpayers, fraud within the government programs, there's a danger, and correct me if I'm wrong, there's a danger that people just roll their eyes and go, well, of course.
Yeah. I think that is, look, are we ever going to be able to completely stamp out fraud when it comes to government welfare programs? Likely not, but when we're talking on the level that we are here, billions of dollars over the course of a handful of years, like, this is a 5-alarm fire in the state of Minnesota, and Minnesotans should be utterly outraged. Like, they have been failed by their government officials, by the people who are supposed to keep their eyes on the public purse. They have been exploited by their fellow residents in the state. And, ultimately, this money, we can talk about whether or not government welfare is, what we think about that politically, but this money was earmarked for, people who had some needs, and as a result, those needs went unmet, and the taxpayer still got hit with a bill, and it went to fund, lavish lifestyles and luxury vehicles and real estate purchases in Africa and across America.
Yeah, no, look, I agree that the programs themselves, setting up these programs, the needs are very legitimate, right? And yet, well, let me, before I go down that road, you mentioned that, the people of Minnesota should be outraged. Do you get the sense that they are?
I get the sense that there is, a lot of anger in the state. Now, I can't speak for everyone, but I've been, pretty consistently working the phones since this story broke, keeping in touch with the contacts that I've developed to try and, get a sense of what they're hearing and what the situation is on the ground. I also spent time in Minnesota while reporting this piece, and, I definitely think that a lot of the people I'm speaking to, at least, are, one, outraged, but two, they're also happy that this is now a national conversation. There have been people at the state level who have been, trying to raise alarm bells about this for a while, and I think they felt like, this is a huge scandal. Why is no one paying attention? And now it's finally kind of broke through on the national level.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.
All right, just want you guys to get a little no eruptions. I just wanted to get his point across and just explain to you exactly how is it that these Somali pirates are stealing from American people. And how is it that, yes, in some cases, they probably, Al-Shabaab is getting a cut of this money. So, again, he said he can't confirm it 100%, of course. This is what I said too as well. There is no 100% confirmation about this, unconfirmed sources and stuff, but there is a clear clarification if the government of Somalia is aware of this fraud scheme and they're taking, quite frankly, they're sitting there and siding with the perpetrators and standing behind them 100%. It's kind of clear cut that, yeah, in some cases, maybe Al-Shabaab really is probably getting a cut of this money. Because I'm pretty sure the government in Somalia is also getting a cut of this, where it was getting a cut of this before this whole big scheme blew up in front of their faces. Again, unconfirmed information, of course. Let me make that very clear. I should have said that earlier. But it's very clear. The signs are there. The connections are there. So as we go on right here, this is Davari Dawkins right here.
Went off on Ilhan Omar during his rally last night. Well, this has led to Republicans and Democrats complaining about his rhetoric and language. But what we're going to do in this video is actually focus on the message and the merits of what he was saying, particularly the economy, where he made some major announcements. But before all that, like this video, share this video, leave a comment down below, and please do not forget to subscribe. Let's start here.
This Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little shoe, the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but she's always complaining. She comes from a country where, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament. They don't know what the hell the word parliament means. They have nothing. They have no police. They police themselves. They kill each other all the time.
They got pirates.
I love it. She comes to our country And she's always complaining about the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out.
Yeah, so you guys know where he was going with that. He was calling for her to, get kicked out of this country and deported. Now, just on the merits alone, which I think should be centered regarding this debate with people like her in Congress, is that if you're not born here in the United States of America, you should not be serving in Congress. I mean, we've said this, I don't know, on a weekly basis now. If the president of the United States has to be born here in our country, so should members of Congress. All right, there's been a few members so far this year that they have publicly stated in front of a camera that it's their home country first, then America. She said it. Others have said it.
There's actually was a trending video. I might pull it up in a minute where this girl was on the whatever podcast and says she is a foreign national from, I believe Colombia it was Colombia. And she refuses to denounce her love and basically nationalism for Colombia, and refuses to put the American flag first and foremost, and put this country that she lives in right now first and foremost now, because this is her country. She don't live in Colombia no more, but she says she will always love Colombia. Her home's in Colombia. You know, everything about her is her sense of Colombia, like, is a nationalism, but for Colombia. So if you have nationalism for a different country, why are you living here? Oh, and then she answered in the same clip saying that she's here just to take advantage of the American system. She's just here to get money. This is what a lot of these foreign. This is why it's kind of hard to not have collective punishment for this entire community of these Somalians, is because like this is all these immigrants right now. They come here. They don't want to assimilate. They still have love for their country, for their flag, for their people back home. And it's just like, it's kind of hard to not see the signs that these people seem like, to me, because the reason they're not assimilating is because they still have that nationalism for their former country and why they don't want to assimilate. If that's the case, then why are you here? If your goal is to come here and steal resources and steal money from the American people, then you should lose your citizenship immediately and be deported. We need to start prioritizing this more and more and more. It's time to stop letting these people come here and letting them in just because we are a Christian country and we are sympathetic to these people's causes. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit about that. Look, it's the morality thing to do, but at the same time, it's also hindering us. Because it's destroying the majority population, which is whites, that are going away because of this white genocide. And they're also taking resources from other people, the minority groups that were born here for generations, like, say, black people, for example, regardless of like my criticisms of them in general. It's still, we're all Americans for the most part. And these immigrants that come here and want to take advantage of the system, take advantage of all the resources, and just extrapolate that and then send it back to another country to enrich themselves, it's the most un-American thing ever. And we just incentivize this instead of just stopping the problem before it really becomes a problem. So I agree that we need to get rid of this stuff and then allow them to also serve in Congress. That's, bruh. The serve in Congress is crazy. To allow foreign nationals to come in and you allow them to serve in your government. That's like us saying we go to China. That's like me going to say if I go get seek asylum in China and I become a citizen in China and then I try to run for like a CCP position. Obviously, I'm not going to do it because I'm not Chinese. They won't allow me to. I believe it's against the law too as well. They won't allow anyone that's not Chinese born to be able to run in any form of governance. Now, of course, you can run in like some tech divisions, but that's like you don't really have no power. You're just like doing like some analytic stuff, but it's nothing of like, say, you're not becoming Xi Jinping, the president of China. So, but yeah, I agree with Davari on that part.
It's nothing new. So let's go to the polar opposite of this rally, meaning how other Republicans feel about it. So this is Governor Cox out of Utah. I think you already know how this is going to go. I wanted to play this clip because it represents the continuous struggle with people in politics and how they react to the president.
President Trump is having a rally. He's talking about affordability, but he's also doing talking about other things. He just randomly talked about Ilhan Omar, talked about the turban on her head, said we should just get her out, and then there was a chant in the crowd, send her back, send her back. So while you all are trying hard to lower the temperature, lower the rhetoric, you have somebody with the biggest, loudest megaphone saying things like that in your party.
Yeah, sure. Look, I disagree with Congresswoman Omar. I think she should be voted out of office, and I think I can do that without attacking her religion or her race or her ethnic background. I think that's really important. I know that the president disagrees with me. He and I have had these conversations. I have to say, during the Charlie Kirk shooting, in the conversations we had, he talked to me about nonviolence and trying to be a voice for that. I understand he's not interested in uniting the country, and he would tell you that, I think, if he were sitting here with us tonight. But I would also say that it's not going to be a president who fixes this. It's not going to be two governors who fix this. It really has to be all of us. So the politicians that we elect are a reflection of we the people.
We know who Donald J. Trump is, okay? The guy's from New York. That tells you everything you need to know. These people will speak their minds, okay? Yes. And so I'm not shocked by his rhetoric. I've never been shocked by his rhetoric. In fact, if anything, his rhetoric actually makes me laugh because he's telling people exactly what they think, or, he's saying what most Americans think, in my opinion. Yes. So, of course, most people have this reaction. It's unbecoming of the presidency, etc. But listen, you can go to the other side where they're nice and polite, but they're just as rude, if not disrespectful, in so many other ways. This is just more of a blunt way of telling people what it is, and they don't like it. All right, so let's go back to the president. Here's more what he had to say about the economy last night.
Permanent pause on third world migration, including from hellholes like Afghanistan, Haiti, Somalia, and many other countries. I didn't say shithole, you did. Remember I said that to the senators that came in, the Democrats. They wanted to be bipartisan.
That's pretty funny.
So they came in
That's pretty
and
funny.
they said, this is totally off the record. Nothing mentioned here. We want to be honest because our country was going to hell. And we had a meeting, and I said, why is it we only take people from shithole countries, right?
That is true.
Why can't we have some people from
we?
Norway, Sweden, just a few? Let's have a few. From Denmark, do you mind sending us a few people? Send us some nice people, do you mind? But we always take people from Somalia, places that are a disaster, right? Filthy, dirty, disgusting, ridden with crime. The only thing they're good at is going after ships. But they don't go after our ships. You know why? Because that same missile that knocks the crap out of them, that with the drug dealers from Venezuela and others.
Listen, the people who are part of the Somalia community, not every single one of them are terrible or a nuisance on our country. Some of them are actually great additions to our company, just like any other, foreign national from any other country.
I can't think of
a lot of them bring work ethic that, people who want success in life really demand of the people that they're working with or working for. That's why most millionaires are not American citizens. Most of them are actually from other countries. I don't know if you guys understand that or if you guys are aware of that. So
oligarchs.
That's not, I don't think he's talking about those particular individuals. He's talking about the people who come here and are wreaking havoc, defrauding the system, committing crimes, not representing America in the best way. And this is the same standard that we apply to ourselves. There's a lot of dirtbags that are American citizens. There's a lot of people just taking up space. There's a lot of people abusing the system. Okay, so why don't we go to someone that attended this rally, a voter of the president, a Trump supporter. Here's what he has to say about the economy and the overall performance from the president.
Trump has addressed a lot of my concerns, brought the price of gas down. No two ways about it.
When it comes to the economy, how would you grade his job performance?
Fantastic.
Confident that the tariff policies are working?
Yes.
How's the Trump economy treating you?
It's doing fine. It's been rough under Biden. Things don't happen overnight. I mean, it takes time. It took time to bring it down. It's going to take time to bring it back up again.
I think the tariff policies will come into effect and start to work because it's going to bring manufacturing jobs back to the U.S. It's going to help stable the middle class and rebuild the middle class.
Tourism is very important here, and there's a lot of people that work in the service industry. I am the owner of an Italian restaurant, and I'm glad that my employees will have the benefit of no tax on tips.
All right, this is just crazy. Because you know what frustrates me the most? It's when these insurance companies continue to lowball everyday Americans when they only care when you're seriously hurt. That injury could be worth millions, and they're not linked in the description below. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and a larger tax deduction regarding Social Security is what it really is. Are some huge reliefs for the American people during a time where their wages have not exceeded the rate of inflation over the past, let's just say 5 years at this point. And so, a lot of people are going to get that money, and it's going to be huge. And they're going to be feeling differently about the economy. Now, what I want to do is play you the reaction from Hakeem Jeffries. Now, this reaction is not this morning. It was actually yesterday. But it's still a reaction based in the fact that the president believes the economy is going in the right direction, that he gave it a A+++, and that he thinks...
All right. So that's his part about the welfare scam that happened in Minnesota. So we're going to move on right here. This is a video right here from Dr. Steve Turley. The walls are closing in on Ilhan Omar.
Imagine a scandal so brazen, so morally rotten, that federal prosecutors call it one of the biggest frauds in American history. And right in the middle of it, you keep finding the same name, For years, the Democrats and the legacy media tried to do everything they possibly could to bury the story. But as of today, it's blowing wide open because now it's not just about a billion-dollar fraud ring in Minnesota. It's about a Somali congresswoman's inner circle getting rich off money meant to feed children. And now a major witness has just stepped forward and affirmed that she did, in fact, marry her own brother to game America's immigration system. Butter the popcorn, sit back, and get ready to watch a political career come crashing down in real time. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the far left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age that you're making happen all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you're changing the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. Ever since she was first elected to Congress back in 2018, Ilhan Omar has built her entire political brand on fomenting resentment through woke identity politics. She's positioned herself as a perpetual victim of Islamophobic smears, all the while denouncing this nation as awash in racism and bigotry. And yet, we shouldn't be too quick to think that this is true ideological fidelity on her part, because as it turns out, that perpetual victimhood actually serves Ilhan quite well. Playing the victim has always been her go-to defense mechanism because it enables her to transform her own alleged misconduct into a narrative of persecution, while simultaneously building a political base energized by grievance politics, all while evidence of actual fraud in her district and questions about her own legal compliance pile up unanswered. But now the facts are finally catching up. Federal prosecutors in Minnesota have charged nearly 80 defendants in what they describe as the largest COVID-era feeding fraud in the nation, centered around a nonprofit front called Feeding Our Future. They say more than $250 million meant for hungry kids was siphoned off into luxury cars, mansions, overseas real estate, and shopping sprees. One of the hubs of that fraud.
You know, something funny, I didn't mention this earlier. It sounds a lot like Black Lives Matter, who did the same exact thing. It's exactly like Black Lives Matter. The same exact thing. Took advantage of the black community, got all their money, and then spent it all on luxury cars, nice mansions, good clothes, jewelry. Then they got busted, and now majority of them are going to jail. That's what happens when you let a lesbian bulldagger lead the organization. It's exactly kind of like that. The similarities are just so apparent. It's hard. It's not that hard to miss.
Safari restaurant in Minneapolis, where Ilhan Omar held her 2018 congressional victory party. According to the New York Post and Fox News, the co-owner Safari, Salim Ahmed Saeed, claimed his operation was feeding millions of meals and pulled in over $32 million in taxpayer money. Prosecutors said the cash was blown on a $2 million Minneapolis mansion and a $9,000 a month Nordstrom shopping habit. But the key here is that this wasn't some random business in Ilhan Omar's district. This was a place that Omar celebrated in her rise to power. There's actually a video from June of 2021 of Omar at that very restaurant, Safari, supposedly helping to distribute meals to children. But it goes deeper. A Democrat activist and former Omar campaign official, Guhad Hashi Saeed, admitted in court that he ran a fake food site that claimed to serve 5,000 meals a day to children and pocketed millions. He worked on Omar's 2018 and 2020 campaigns as an enforcer in the Somali community, driving turnout for her. So what we're seeing here is a very real pattern emerging in Minnesota. We have a massive money laundering fraud happening. And again, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars. There's no way officials did not know about this, and yet they looked the other way precisely because they were the political beneficiaries of the community involved in that fraud. Again, it's very much the pattern we saw when Doge exposed USAID, right? Democrats designed huge welfare programs. We're talking, again, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, humanitarian aid, in this case, COVID spending programs. And they distribute that massive money with almost zero accountability, and that affords the opportunity for their political allies to cash in. Remember, it was Ilhan Omar who introduced the Meals Act in 2020. That's the legislation that helped open the floodgates for hundreds of millions of dollars in child nutrition money that Feeding Our Future and its partners later exploited. And of course, some of that cash ended up in the coffers of the politicians. We now know that Ilhan Omar's campaign received $5,400 from two individuals who were later implicated in the fraud investigation. And that's just what we know about. So at least some of this money that she appropriated, this taxpayer money that she appropriated, ended up funneling back into her campaign coffers. Again, just like we saw with USAID. Now, of course, Omar's playing dumb with this. When she's not accusing her investigators of racism and Islamophobia, she's denying any involvement in this whatsoever. But here's the problem. You can't campaign with these people, celebrate with them, hire them, sponsor the legislation that opens the spigot, watch hundreds of millions of dollars pour into your own community, end up financially benefiting from opening up that spigot, and then pretend you know nothing about it. So this is a scandal that has real legs to it. Again, we've already found members of Omar's inner circle implicated in the fraud, and we've seen fraud money ending up in her campaign coffers. I have a feeling this is all just the tip of the iceberg. But that's not the only scandal that's closing in on her. Wait until you see the latest on Omar's immigration status. This is going to absolutely blow you away. But first, who likes chocolate? I know I do. But what if you dumped this cocoa powder in your coffee?
Guy's kind of a little bit corny, a little bit. He's like, give me like old school Gen X corny vibes. That's what I'm getting for this guy. He's definitely well read. I'll give him that.
And then you became 27% harder to kill. People just showed that this might reduce a heart attack. Click on that link below right now. The second major scandal that's blowing up is even darker, because it goes to the question, who is Ilhan Omar really? For years, Omar has brushed off claims that she married her brother as baseless, absurd rumors. But a bombshell report from the Daily Mail just dropped, and it features a Somali community insider, Abdi Hakim Osman, going on the record saying Omar herself told friends that the man who became her second husband, Ahmed Elmi, was actually her brother. So according to Osman, Omar said that she had to do what she had to do to get this guy papers so he could stay in the United States and go to school. He describes Elmi showing up in Minneapolis from London, being introduced by Omar and her first husband as her brother, then suddenly, quietly, becoming her legally registered husband. Now, if you don't know, these allegations that Omar married her brother to commit immigration fraud actually originated from a post on the Somali American Internet Forum back in 2016. Omar married Ahmed Elmi back in 2009. He's a British citizen who attended North Dakota State University and studied fine arts. Very little is publicly known about him, but they ended up divorcing just a little while later. And when she ended up having a child with her new husband, and I'll talk about this in a sec, who was actually her original husband, when she ended up having a child with her new husband, there were apparently Instagram posts from Elmi, her former husband, calling Ilhan Omar's newborn daughter his niece, implying that he was Omar's brother. And it was a weird marriage. If you don't know, again, she was married before that to a guy named Ahmed Hirsi. They separated, they supposedly divorced, and then she marries this guy, Elmi, who, again, we're being told everyone in the Somali community knew was her brother. And then oddly, they divorced shortly thereafter, right after he migrates to the United States. And then she gets back together with her original husband, Ahmed Hirsi. In fact, the Somali leader, Osman, he's saying that Omar and Hirsi never truly broke up. They remained together as husband and wife, even while she was legally married to Elmi, and later remarried, quote unquote, in 2018, right in time for a congressional run. So this is why this allegation just simply won't go away. But the problem is, thus far, there's no definitive proof that Elmi is Omar's husband. In other words, we have a marriage certificate, yes, but that's not definitive proof that he's her brother. There's no birth certificate for him. There's no immigration.
This is wild right here. This is fucking wild. That guy her brother has to be deported because this is basically a form of marriage fraud. And she also needs to be deported too as well. I mean, bro, that's disgusting. Even though technically speaking they didn't do anything, she married her brother in order to gain his citizenship. That is technically marriage fraud, and it's up for deportation under immigration law.
Record. There's no definitive legal document that thus far surfaced proving Elmi is Omar's brother. I'm sure it will at some point, but thus far it is not. So all we have is this circumstantial evidence, like we're seeing with the Somali community.
They're definitely trying to keep that documentation hidden. They do not want that coming out that that's her brother. If that's the case, he's up for deportation as soon as they figure out that, technically speaking, they committed marriage fraud to allow him to enter the country. And technically speaking, shouldn't her paperwork also be in question too as well? Because she's not a natural born citizen. She came here like, I think 10 years ago, I believe. So she's not a natural born citizen.
Leader, but it keeps mounting. So step back and connect all the dots here. On one side, you've got a congresswoman whose legislative push and political network are now tied to the largest COVID feeding fraud in America, involving hundreds of millions of dollars stolen from children, and her allies pleading guilty and her donors being indicted. On the other side, you've got mounting testimony from inside her own community that she abused America's immigration marriage systems to benefit her own family, then spent years stonewalling anyone who asked for clarity. This is not a right-wing conspiracy. These are court documents, federal indictments, on-the-record witnesses, and mainstream outlets finally catching up. The walls are closing in on Ilhan Omar because the story is no longer about tweets or slogans or identity politics. It's about whether one of the most radical members of Congress sits atop a foundation of fraud. Fraud against American taxpayers and fraud against America's immigration laws. This is a scandal no amount of media spin can protect forever. Stay tuned because this story is only going to get bigger. And the political shield around Ilhan Omar is starting to crack. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section below. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless. If today's message resonated with you, you'll love Turley.
All right. So we're going to go on to our next story, the January 6th pipe bomb. Pull up my notes so we can talk about this. So, okay. So let's go over the official arrest and announcement that took place December 4th to 5th, 2025. Who was arrested? Federal authorities arrested Brian J. Cole Jr., a 30-year-old man from Woodbridge, Virginia, in connection with 2 pipe bombs planted near the Republican National Committee (RNC) and Democratic National Committee (DNC) headquarters on the evening of January 5th, 2021, the night before the Capitol riot. This was reported by the Times Magazine. Charges filed. Cole was charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and attempted malice destruction by means of explosive materials as outlined in charging documents, the Washington Post reported. Official press conference. So we're gonna well, this one's not a good one. I actually need a better press conference. Let's see. I think we could probably react to this one. This one's probably better because it cuts off at one point.
Use of an explosive.
It cuts off at one point, so we're just gonna get this one right here, a brief summarize of the press conference. I was gonna use this one originally, but then I realized like it does cut off at some point during the press conference. Because they have like some technical difficulties, but I want to get everyone's reactions. I want to get Dan Bongino. I want to get Cash Patel. I want to get Pam Bundy, and I want to get the prosecutor. I want to get all their I forgot her name. Sorry, I forget her name. Yeah, so I want to get everyone's reactions. I want to get everyone's comments. I want to get everyone's statements about this guy right here, especially Dan Bongino, because he was like the ringleader in getting this the deputy director of the FBI. Because I guess Cash Patel was too busy trying to look for another jacket, like the Jacketgate scandal. I'm contemplating playing that video for you guys about that after I cover this one, but yeah, we're already kind of pushing time.
Device. This investigation is ongoing. As we speak, search warrants are being executed, and there could be more charges to come. I'm going to let our U.S. Attorney discuss that shortly. This was the work of multiple
U.S. Attorney. I forgot her name still. It's the U.S. Attorney. I forgot what her title was, but I know she was part of the division, but I forgot which was her title, and it was Attorney General. Not Attorney General, U.S. Attorney.
Agencies working together. This morning's operation was carried out safely and successfully. We know that there are so many issues when you're issuing search warrants. Dangerous things can happen, and this was carried out safely and securely thanks to all of the people standing around me. They have worked tirelessly on this. Today's arrest happened because the Trump administration has made this case a priority. The total lack of movement on this case in our nation's capital undermined the public trust of our enforcement agencies. This cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Piers and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years. Let me be clear, there was no new tip, there was no new witness, just good, diligent police work and prosecutorial work, working as a team, along with ATF, Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, and of course, the FBI. We are working every day to restore the public's trust. We hope that today is a significant step towards that progress. We'll share more information when we can and when it unfolds. I cannot stress enough how hard Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino have worked for months to make our nation's capital safer and to make our country safer. I'd like to introduce now Director Patel.
Thank you, General. When you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. And this FBI and this Department of Justice stand here to tell you that we will always refute it and combat it. We will provide the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case of massive public importance, as it should be. An individual who's now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested thanks to the brave men and women of the FBI and the interagency. I want to take a moment to thank the Metropolitan Police Department, the United States Capitol Police, our brave prosecutors, the Department of Justice, and our leader, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro, whose relentless work on this case made this possible. As the Attorney General said, we did not discover any new information. What we did An investigation spearheaded by the deputy director and the ADIC of our Washington field office brought in a new team of investigators and experts, re-examined every piece of evidence, sifted through all the data, something that the prior administration refused and failed to do. As a result of that, we generated numerous investigative leads, executed multiple legal process with our U.S. attorney partners, and came to this conclusion today. And that is why we were able to safely secure this individual into custody. Remember, we were dealing with an individual who was alleged to have made bombs. We cannot do this sort of takedown in haste because it endangers the lives of law enforcement. And this FBI will never allow the lives of law enforcement and our prosecutors to be put in jeopardy. This execution was flawless in terms of teamwork, resilience, and just a good old-fashioned way of police getting the job done. When you let good cops be cops, this is what happens. I'm eternally grateful to the team behind me, to the leadership at the FBI who made this possible. But I do want to highlight, when I introduced the deputy, he made this case and so many others, including Summer Heat, his priority to come in here and solve it for the American people. And today, I'm proud to stand here before you and say, we solved it. He will have his day in court. The American public and the world will learn even more information through the legal process, as we have committed under this Attorney General. We are the most transparent law enforcement operation in U.S. history, but we are also going to make sure accountability is delivered to its fullest extent. And that happens in the courts of law with our U.S. attorneys and our prosecutors. So we will divulge information when it is prudent and constitutionally permissible, while upholding the safeguards of this case to make sure that the people that this individual intended to victimize get the accountability they deserve, and most importantly, to deliver on President Trump's promise to secure our nation's capital and the rest of the cities in this country, to make sure that Americans are allowed to go out free and securely in their neighborhoods, and that people around the world are allowed to visit our nation's capital, and they now have that trust thanks to the leadership of the FBI, the Washington field office, and I'm honored now to introduce to you Deputy Director Bongino, who spearheaded this investigation.
Thank you all for being here for this critical investigation we've been working on for a very long time. We deeply appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words, Attorney General and Director. I appreciate it. Folks, this is what it's like when you work for a president who tells you to go get the bad guys and stop focusing on other extraneous things not related to law enforcement. This is what happens. We had a great team. I know it's said a lot in this business. It was a team effort. It becomes cliche, but cliches are useful for a reason because they matter. And this was a team effort. The Director and the Attorney General emphasized that it was not a new public tip this came from. This was our internal work at the FBI. And I want to just really express my sincere gratitude to this Attorney General and this President for allowing us the latitude. I spoke with Ms. Bondi very early when we, maybe day 2, and I said, we're going to get this guy. And she said, yes, you are. And we did. I want to also thank, he's not here, but Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, who we deal with often as well, who could not have been more supportive. Whatever process we need, Judge Janine, Todd, and Attorney General Bondi, they were there. All you had to do, they were a phone call away. And their team was amazing. We actually never had to make that phone call because they were always responsive. And thank you, Judge, as well. You were amazing. Folks, you're not going to walk into our capital city, put down 2 explosive devices, and walk off in the sunset. Not going to happen. We were going to track this person to the end of the earth. There was no way he was getting away. Well, we didn't have to track him to the end of the earth. It wound up in Woodbridge, Virginia. I want to thank the team. They were amazing. They never let this go. Again, Attorney General Bondi, for your incredible support. Director Patel, Judge, I know they're giving me a lot of unnecessary credit, but make no mistake, they were intimately involved in this and were there for all of those supportive mechanisms, and I deeply appreciate it. The man whose team did the work is the Assistant Director in charge of our Washington field office, Darren Cox. Darren's got some comments, and Darren has some more details on the case he can provide. So thank you all for coming. We appreciate it.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren Cox. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the Washington field office. Today's arrest of the alleged D.C. pipe bomber is a momentous day for the American public, for the FBI, for our Joint Terrorism Task Force, or the JTTF, and our partners, the U.S. Capitol Police, Metropolitan Police Department, and ATF. We've also had a large number of other federal, state, and local departments that have worked on this investigation. And last but not least, the U.S. Attorney's Office. We all worked hand in hand to solve this investigation. This has been a long week.
Coming up after this, we're going to be reacting to Nick Fuentes and the Piers Morgan interview / debate. So stay tuned.
In D.C. After the terrorist attack last week, the grit and determination of the FBI and our law enforcement partners is an example to the American public of what cooperation, partnership, and selfless service can accomplish. The amount of effort the FBI and our partners devoted to identifying the pipe bomber cannot be overstated. It is the resolve and determination of our investigators that ultimately led to the identification and the arrest of this suspect. We all know pipe bombs are dangerous, not because of the potential loss of life, damage to property, or injury that they can cause, but also because they are tools that terrorize our community. Fortunately, these bombs did not explode, although they certainly could have. But make no mistake, the alleged pipe bomber did terrorize our community. Today's actions underscore the long memory and the long reach of the FBI and our partners. I know some people had given up on finding the perpetrator, but not the FBI and not our partners. We do not forget, we do not give up, and we do not relent. Though it had been nearly 5 years, our team continued to churn through massive amounts of data and tips that we used to identify this suspect. I want to thank Director Patel,
and Deputy Director Bongino for their leadership and for providing us the resources and the personnel to reevaluate all of the data that we had. We dove into more than 3 million lines of data to come up with this suspect. Director Patel, Deputy Director Bongino, thank you for your support, thank you for your passion, and thank you for your investment in this investigation. From me, on behalf of the investigators, the Washington Field Office, and all of our partners, thank you. I'd also like to thank Judge Pirro. Judge, your team and you are absolutely amazing. You're the type of prosecutors and U.S. attorney that all of the investigators across the country want to work with. They're hard-nosed and they're aggressive, and thank you for that. I'd also like to thank the American public for providing tips and leads, not just on this case, but every day on cases across the country that are being solved by law enforcement. And finally, I want to commend all of the members of the Washington Field Office, and most specifically, the investigative team. Their diligence and persistence led to this arrest today, and they are absolutely, totally dedicated not only to this case, but every case they work. So thank you, Washington Field Office. Last, I will say our work is not done. The FBI will continue to pursue every lead and use every resource that we have to ensure that the D.C. pipe bomber is brought to justice. Thank you.
You keep hearing the words partnership and team, and that's what we are. And we could not do this without our U.S. Attorney, Jeanine Pirro. Jeanine, from day one, has worked tirelessly for our country and for our nation's capital. It's my honor to introduce my friend, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro.
Jeanine Pirro, that was her name. Yeah. I did want to jump in, even though Dave already said her name earlier. I was just listening, with everyone else. But yes, her name is U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro. That was her name. Yeah, she's come in. She's very vocal. I would say that ever since Trump brought her onto the team. I mean, she seems like she's very vocal, very passionate about what she does, and she wants to lock up criminals, and that's one thing I can get behind. Okay, there's many things that I don't agree with the Trump administration has done this year. Getting Jeanine Pirro, who seems like she's very dedicated about getting the job done, that's a plus for me.
Thank you very much, Attorney.
And that's coming from me when I don't really respect women in positions of authority.
General, and you have been listening to a lot of thank yous and a lot of gratitude. The reason that we're thanking each other to the extent that we are today is because we have seen in this case an incredible collaboration around the clock, in the middle of the night. It doesn't matter. We call each other, we make contact, they need a warrant, they need something, someone wants legal advice. These are the men and women who never give it up. You hear about government employees, but I don't know if you really realize what it is that they do. They are incredible, and this case is big. 4 years, 10 months, and 28 days ago, an individual placed a bomb in the vicinity of both the RNC and the DNC. And for that amount of time, that individual evaded accountability. Today, as a result of the cumulative efforts of the men and women in the FBI and the police department and the Department of Justice, we are finally able to make an arrest of an individual by the name of Brian Cole. As the Attorney General has indicated, he is arrested for transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce, as well as the attempted malicious destruction by means of explosive materials. You know, folks, this case involved millions of pieces of data. And it is a huge win because it was like finding a needle in a haystack. So much of this evidence was very specific, but a lot of it was also very general. For example, there were 233,000 black end caps of the type that were used in this case. I want you to think about the fact that the FBI had to go through the sale of every one of them to try to find commonality with an individual, along with the purchase of the pipe itself, the cap ends, the wires, the steel, and the 9-volt batteries. Every one of those had to be mined and remined to the point where we were able to then connect. And make no mistake, it was this administration, it was this president who made the decision that we were going to use all of our efforts to get it done, and get it done they did. Finally, let me say this. Today begins the formal process of accountability, where this defendant will begin his journey through the criminal justice system. And I pledge to you that the United States Attorney's Office will take this case across the finish line. Again, thank you to the incredible work of the FBI, to the Attorney General, and to our local partners as well. This is a job that I think was well done.
Thank you. President Trump's directive to all of us was to not only make America safe again, but D.C., and to make it safe and beautiful. We could not have done that without our partnership with Mayor Bowser and Chief Smith. It is my honor to introduce Metropolitan Police Department Chief Smith. Good afternoon, and thank you, everyone. I am Chief Pamela Smith, Chief of Police.
Damn, DEI is really doing a number on this country. It was supposed to not be practicing it, but yet we got a bulldagger lesbian for a police chief. What?
The Metropolitan Police Department. Thank you, Attorney General Bondi, the U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro, and FBI Director Patel for having me here today. For nearly 5 years, the agencies standing here today have worked together under the leadership of the FBI to locate our suspect who is responsible for the 2 pipe bombs that were placed around our city. MPD members assigned to the FBI's Joint Terrorism Task Force have supported this case from the beginning. That supports include looking, reviewing, and going through countless, probably thousands of hours of CCTV footage from around the DNC and RNC headquarters, and they followed up on hundreds and thousands of leads from members of our communities. What I will say today is that Washingtonians can rest easier today knowing that the suspect responsible for this act is now in custody.
All right, we're just gonna move on right now because I think, yeah, they're just doing like a little circle jerking right now. So pull back up my notes right quick. All right, so as it says right here, the official press conference, Attorney General Pam Bondi held a DOJ press briefing announcing the arrest, highlighting that the case was resolved through good, diligent police work and reevaluation of existing evidence, not a new tip. He said the investigation remains active and additional charges may be forthcoming. FBI Director Kash Patel emphasized that experts were brought in to re-examine the evidence, ultimately leading to obtaining such search warrants and the suspect's address. Roll call. This is from Roll Call. Investigation context. The FBI has offered up to a $500,000 reward for information leading to the arrest. The devices were disabled safely, but were viable and potentially lethal. This is from this report from the Times. So, okay, so we're gonna go over the evidence and the court filings now. FBI affidavit details. Court filings and affidavits detail key elements investigations used to tie Cole to the case. Okay. Bomb compartments purchases. Records showed Cole bought materials between 2019 and 2020, consistent with the compartments used in the pipe bombs, pipes, end caps, battery connectors, timers, wiring. The Washington Post reported. Cell phone and vehicle location data. Cell phone tower data placed his cell phone near the DNC and the RNC the night the devices were placed. A license plate reader captured his vehicle near the relevant area soon after placement. This is from the Washington Post. The affidavit suggested Cole continued to purchase bomb compartments even after January 5th, 2021, New York Post. There's no telling what he would have done if he was still purchasing the materials to make more pipe bombs. Court proceedings. Cole made his first appearance before a federal magistrate judge. A detention hearing was set for December 15th, 2025, and Cole did not enter a plea at the initial hearing. That's reported by the Times. All right. So we're going to get the official remarks and a bit of the broadcast summary, even though we just watched it, but I'll get a little bit more details. So the Department of Justice, law enforcement, Attorney General Bondi stressed no new evidence or tip led to the arrest. Investigations simply re-examine existing data. We said that earlier. That's reported from TPR. Bondi and other officials portrayed this as a major breakthrough in one of the longest running unanswered puzzles related to January 6th, Time magazine. That and also a bunch of regular dress clothes FBI agents that were also there in the crowds, egging on the crowd to go into the Capitol, and as you all saw the footage, commence with the violence and destructions of the Capitol, which led to people dying, lives ruined, a lot of people getting destroyed because of this incident. So in political context and remarks, so in some congressional or press appearances, officials and commentators discussed the case against a backdrop of long-standing claims about investigation delays and faction criticism on how the case was handled over the years. This is from the Washington Post. All right, so we'll get some additional reportings. So get the motivation and the affiliations. So investigators have not publicly identified a definitive motive in charged documents. This is reported so far. This was reported from the Times. Some reporting indicates that Cole expressed belief in 2020 election conspiracy theories during interviews with the FBI, but the official court documents have not tied that directly to the bomb placement motive, TPR, as reported. Historical significance. So this is the first time a suspect in the January 6 pipe bomb placements have been publicly identified and arrested, resolving a mystery that persisted since the devices were found, but which did not explode in January 2021. This was reported by PBS. Okay, so let's go on and move on. This is going to be, we're still sticking with Live Now from Fox. This is the FBI reveals new details in January 6 pipe bomb arrest.
Later today, the man accused of placing pipe bombs outside of the headquarters for both the Democrat and Republican national parties on the eve of January 6, 2021, is expected to go before a judge. The court appearance for Brian Cole comes just a day after the FBI says they arrested the 30-year-old man from Woodbridge, Virginia, seen in that photo right there on your screen. Now, the Justice Department did explain that Cole faces explosives charges and could potentially face even more charges as the investigation does continue. The arrest nearly 5 years after it all unfolded, and here is some of what FBI Director Kash Patel had to say after the arrest.
When you attack American citizens, when you attack our institutions of legislation, when you attack our nation's capital, you attack the very being of our way of life. And this FBI and this Department of Justice stand here to tell you that we will always refute it and combat it. We will provide the safest country the nation has ever seen under President Trump's leadership here. And that's what we did here today with great resolve on a case of massive public importance, as it should be. An individual who's now alleged to have placed multiple explosive devices to blow up multiple people and multiple officials, innocent civilians, is now arrested thanks to the brave men and women of the FBI and the interagency.
All right, and that was FBI Director Kash Patel, who was providing that news conference there just yesterday. While the explosives were placed on January 5th, they were discovered, we're told, the following day on January 6, 2021. That's the day that supporters of President Donald Trump rushed inside the U.S. Capitol to protest the results of the 2020 election. An arrest affidavit does state that law enforcement reviewed credit card purchases of pipe bomb components, cell phone tower data, and a license plate reader to zero in on Cole as their suspect. Attorney General Pam Bondi adding that no new tip or witness led to the arrest. It was a fresh set of eyes taking a look at the case and making it a priority. All right, I want to discuss the case in general here, so let's bring in Scott Duffy, former FBI Supervisory Special Agent, to discuss it all. Scott, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning, Josh. Thanks for having me.
Of course. And first off, I do want to ask you overall, there's a lot of information here that we have learned from authorities over the last 24 hours or so, but there's a lot we still don't know. What has stood out to you overall about what we know and what we don't?
Yeah, first, listening to the press conferences yesterday by both the Attorney General and the FBI Director, I like hearing that it was not a new tip, even though the FBI poured $500,000 into, anybody out there who was waiting for information or waiting to present that information with the right motive. Here it is. And we've learned that it is fresh eyes, as you had said this morning, taking a look. It's a classic cold case investigation where you put new investigators saying, what do we have that might have been missed? Because it is, I can imagine, thousands upon thousands of pieces of information, not only from the forensics, but from the tips that I'm sure have poured in, and you're going through to say, is there something that without a doubt says this person is the person, let's go get him. We're 5 years into this, and almost 5 years to the day, coming up with a suspect that they believe without a doubt is their person, where they were able to put handcuffs and execute search warrants. So that kudos to all the investigators.
5 years. I have to imagine at that point, and each case, of course, is its own case. Everything's kind of different depending on the case there, but 5 years, that is quite a while. Is there a point where investigators say we need a fresh set of eyes, we need someone to look at this, especially in a high-profile case like that one?
Yes, and perhaps, with the change of guard and so forth, putting new eyes, new investigators, 5 years is a long time in an investigation. You have investigators that move on, promoted, moving to different divisions, and so thereby you have a case that might be just going through a rotation. I many times in my old office where you have a case that gets put on your desk, and you try to take a look at it, you talk to the investigators who had it before, and it's a whole new look. And every investigator, even though we are trained in the steps of investigation, let the evidence speak for itself, and the analysts do their job, and then ultimately the investigator, the case agents, trying to put those pieces together and say, do we have a named suspect that we can look hard at, right? So I liken it to you're going forward. You're in hot pursuit of somebody, and so thereby you're running after that person. You've seen that person commit the crime. You see their clothing. They turn the corner, and all of a sudden they're in the middle of a marathon, and you're like, who is this person? Where is that person? And they're shedding their outer clothing. I would liken that to this, where they have video camera, they have lots and lots of cell phone tower, they have LPRs, which are your license plate readers. So you have lots of people that they could be looking at. And that person turned the corner and got lost in the crowd. Now they've identified that person, so they're able to backtrack. And it's a wonderful thing when you have a name, and then you're able to say, is the evidence at the scene match to that of the person that we have identified? And it seems like here they have.
And I've asked you this question before in the past when we take a look at situations like this one and different high-profile investigations, but what role does the public play in a case like this? Because the FBI was very quick to release the surveillance images, the video there that kind of showed all of this as it played out, and they released it over time as well. They wanted to make sure it appeared that the case wasn't forgotten. So we saw one clip of video, and then later we'd see another one from a different angle. So what does the public play in tracking down someone like this and identifying them when investigators don't necessarily know who it is?
Yeah, excellent question. The media and the public play a vital role. So when you have something like this, unlike like even going back to the Boston bomber during the marathon, you have, and there was a bit of a misstep with regards to providing the wrong photos of who they believed were their suspects. And ultimately here, this was a little more unique because you have somebody that is tied to the actual backpacks, the timing, the fact that there weren't many people, if any, in the vicinity. So you were, the video that they've obtained here to say, we feel very comfortable. This is our individual who is laying down these pipe bombs. So now, if we can't identify this person through our investigation, we need the help of the public, and this is amazing when you put something out there. I'm sure there were many tips that had come out, and hopefully some of those tips from the public do match with ultimately the suspect they have in custody.
Social media, on that same topic there, that can maybe cause some confusion and misinformation that comes out. How does that play a role in all of it when people are sharing that video, but also maybe sharing information that is not correct?
Yeah, correct. Putting their own narratives, right? And that's how we get conspiracy theorists who provide a little bit of truth and then ultimately their own narrative. And the narrative could make sense. It's logical. And so law enforcement is used to this. They have plenty of analysts that guide what they're doing to be able to offer what they need to know. So they're able to separate the conspiracy theorists or just really bad information and stay on point with ultimately the pieces of evidence that they've gathered. Where does that lead them? And does that lead them to the person they've taken into custody yesterday?
What question or questions do you hope might be answered as the day does progress here? We know that the suspect is going to appear in court, which means that we could get even more of the court documents. All of that, of course, kind of up in the air. But as we wait for that, what question or questions do you hope could be answered as the day moves forward?
We always look forward to the motive. If this person is talking to the FBI, hopefully then that has already been obtained and will be released as this goes through the court process. So you ultimately want to identify the motive so we can better understand someone of this nature. Why do this? Why put people in harm's way? And what is your position now? Why has this not happened, at least from what we gather, over the last 5 years? Typically, having had serial criminals, right, you want them to keep committing the crime so you get closer and closer if you don't have an identity, and then ultimately they make a mistake. Here, it seems that nothing has happened from 5 years ago to laying down these pipe bombs to them making an arrest yesterday. It would be interesting to see where has he been and why so dormant up until this time.
I did want to ask you this kind of from your perspective. We've had a lot of legal experts and I've gotten their take, but as someone who is former FBI, I want to get your take on this. What importance would you say cameras in the court? Now, there's not going to be cameras inside of this courtroom as far as we understand. We are talking about some serious charges, but do you think it's important for cameras to be inside of the courtroom for cases like this that are high profile? I don't know if that's something you've thought about in the past, but I wanted to get your take.
I love that question, and I've debated some very good fellow colleagues, both in the FBI and other departments. I am for cameras in the courtroom. I know that the federal system, the cameras are not there. You typically have your individual who's going to create an animation or some sort of caricature. But I'm a proponent of the cameras in the courtroom, and I think it lends itself to, if we have body cams and dash cams on police cars, and everyone else has a cell phone that's capturing what is happening out there real time, then why not let the public see how it unfolds in a courtroom with a juror? Of course, keep the cameras off the jury, keep the cameras off the non-relevant individuals, but allow people to see what is unfolding in a courtroom and to see just how difficult it is. Prosecution side, the defense side, all the arguments. I think it would better educate the public as opposed to just making summary opinions of it.
Yeah, and of course, those sketches I'm sure will come out later today after he does appear in court. Not quite clear what the case is really going to consist of as far as going before the judge, because it should be an arraignment. So it should be kind of fairly cut and dry, where he's read the charges and then enters what will likely be a not guilty plea. And then we set another court date. All right, Scott Duffy, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Anything we missed? Anything you want to add here before I let you go?
No, I just, again, reiterate kudos to the investigators to bringing fresh eyes and seeing that the evidence was there before them, but it is a trove of evidence, and the right diggers were able to uncover what they needed. So kudos to all those involved in identifying the subject.
All right, Scott, thank you again for being here. We definitely appreciate it.
Thank you.
And of course, do want to remind you here that coming up later today, the suspect, Brian Cole, will appear in court. Now, as we mentioned, we'll get sketches. However, it is a federal courtroom, so cameras will not be allowed inside. Not quite clear if we'll get comments from folks afterward. We know that we've heard after certain court cases there from Janine Pirro, the U.S. attorney for D.C. We might potentially hear from Pam Bondi again, but we'll, of course, keep you updated here as that does play out.
All right. Of course, he did attend the court hearing, and there were some sketches. Now, let's get into this right here. This is very funny. So we're going to segue into some of the little comedy or whatever. This is Jake Tapper calling the pipe bomber a white man.
Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosion. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home in Woodbridge, Virginia this morning. Brian Cole Jr.
So there you have it. Jake Tapper called him white man. Now let's get the reaction from PBD and the crew. They're gonna give a reaction to this guy, Jake Tapper, calling him a white man. And he did correct
Police
himself.
arrest suspect in D.C. pipe bomb case after 5-year investigation.
I'm gonna step away for a minute and go use the restroom. Let this play.
That they've been talking about. So remember when this happened, the timing of it, right? So people have forgotten about it. You know, some haven't forgotten about it. Some have kind of moved on because we've had so many different stories that we have going on here. A suspect who allegedly planted pipe bomb blocks from U.S. Capitol on January 5th, 2021 is now federal custody after a nearly 5-year investigation. Law enforcement sources told Fox News Digital on Thursday video footage released by the FBI showed an unidentified person placing the pipe bombs near two headquarters more than 16 hours before law enforcement found them. The suspect was seen wearing a gray hoodie, Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers, a mask, glasses, and gloves, but the person's identity had long been unknown. And the initial investigation had shown in under 2 months, by the end of February 2021, possible result of credible leads drying up at the time. According to a congressional report, authorities discovered the 2 pipe bombs near the Republican and Democrat National Committee headquarters around the same time that thousands of protesters a few blocks away began to descend on the Capitol over 2020 elections. The bombs were described as visible and could have exploded at any time, according to the FBI. The suspect arrest comes after a renewed push by the FBI to solve the case, including the release of new video footage and a $500,000 reward for information leading to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible. Go ahead, Rob.
This was the work of multiple agencies working together. This morning's operation was carried out safely and successfully. We know that there are so many issues when you're issuing search warrants. Dangerous things can happen, and this was carried out safely and securely thanks to all of the people standing around me. They have worked tirelessly on this. Today's arrest happened because the Trump administration has made this case a priority. The total lack of movement on this case in our nation's capital undermined the public trust of our enforcement agencies. This cold case languished for 4 years until Director Patel and Deputy Director Bongino came to the FBI. The FBI, along with U.S. Attorney Pirro and all of our prosecutors, have worked tirelessly for months, sifting through evidence that had been sitting at the FBI with the Biden administration for 4 long years. Let me be clear, there was no new tip, there was no new witness.
So they didn't know this entire time.
Of course they did.
And they didn't want to report it.
Of course
so
not.
What clip do you want to show me?
Okay, so okay, so guys, we talked about this yesterday, Pat, with my friend that was here yesterday. Guys, the entire movement of why I think America started waking up is the moment that Jim Acosta was talking crap to the president in 2016, and he said, I'm not going to give you any questions. You're fake news. And that moment, you'd think CNN would realize, after all the firing, Pat, after losing all the money, Jake Tapper, another guy who acted like he didn't know about Biden's mental decline, writes the book blaming everybody. You can't make this up. I had to check this 5 times to make sure it wasn't AI. Look at him describing the guy, Brian Cole Jr., as what? Go ahead, Rob. This is a joke.
To the lead on Jake Tapper, after nearly 5 years of investigation, the FBI finally announced that they had arrested a suspect accused of planting pipe bombs near the Republican and Democratic National Committee headquarters the night before the January 2021 Capitol attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device.
No, it's not.
This is not AI edited.
By means of explosion.
White guy. Go back again, Rob. Go back again, like when he says that. Go back a little bit. No, 5 seconds right there. Go ahead.
Attack. Brian Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction by means of explosions. CNN observed local and federal law enforcement outside his home.
Now, let me just give you a little backstory about this. And again, they're saying it is who he is. I don't know how tall this guy is, the Brian Cole, but the videos, Pat, if you see it, it's a 5'7". That's why it looked kind of weird, but I don't know how tall this guy is, but we're going to find out. But his dad.
So I was getting something to eat too as well. Getting kind of hungry. Sitting up here for a minute, man. You guys are getting a marathon out of me right now in this content.
Statewide Bonding, Inc., Virginia-based immigration bail bond company. Think about this. The family built business. They were built on freeing illegal immigrants from ICE custody, and that same business sued.
Got some cheese pizza over here, too.
The prior administration's DHS in 2019 over discrimination, okay? And think about this.
this makes sense if this is him, why they held it for 4 years. He's a young black kid, guy, who was anti-Trump, all right? He sued Trump, he sued ICE, he sued the DHS, he pushed radical justice causes and worked at a family bond place. And think about it. They didn't lose him, Tom. They had receipts, they had his license plate number, they had phone data, they had the footage, they knew exactly who he was, they could have exposed him, but the narrative was, let's put something to distract all law enforcement, because of this, all law enforcement was diverted from January 6th, and they were worrying about this guy. They were worrying about this white supremacist, white guy from the suburbs, as Jake Tapper says it, and it was all on purpose, okay? And I genuinely, this is my opinion, Christopher Wray, who was in charge of the FBI, Tommy, needs to be investigated, just like Jim Comey. Agreed. Right? He had 13% of the FBI going after January 6th cases. That's 5,000 out of 38,000 people hunting grandmothers, grandfathers, people that weren't even in Washington that day. That's
including getting over petabytes of information where they help identify people who are wearing winter gear and covered up by the way they walked and their anticipated height. So they took that action of people that were on the thing, but they had all sorts of street footage, and they couldn't find this guy for 5 years.
Yeah, so for 5 years, and then
I just want to make sure I understood.
No, you get it. And then it's weird that they come in and they find him like that. It's the narrative. January 6th was a setup from the beginning. And if you think about it, the pipe bombs didn't go off because they know they'd be in a world of crap. But look at how this FBI, and I want people to understand, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, all these people, good job, they're doing something. We have criticized them in the past. But think about all the agents, Tom, that are still in the FBI, that still have that hate, that still would do the color revolution that we keep talking about. Just because they're in charge doesn't mean anything. Those people are still involved, just like the Lisa Pages, just like the freaking Peter Strzok.
There's like 5 stories here you're covering. First you have the CNN. By the way, this is CNN's happening.
It's crazy how they never caught this guy for like 5 years. I was rolling around, and it took this new administration, this new FBI, these new heads of the FBI to come in and then just do it in far less time. So Vinny is making very good, valid points right now. Yeah, it's definitely, it seems like, yeah, the former head of the FBI really purposely let this guy roam around for this many years. And I'm pretty sure they already had the information they needed. As it's clear, as I just read through all my notes right now earlier, yeah, they didn't use no new information. They had all the information they needed. They were able to find the guy pretty easily. So it's clear that this guy was just pretty much just like, as a thank you to being a participant in this January 6th project, as I like to call it, they just allow him to roam free. But of course, when the Trump administration came back in, they were, especially with the new heads of the FBI like Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, they were definitely going to go after this guy and not let him keep roaming free. And to put this to bed about this whole like thing that January 6th wasn't a setup, when it clearly was. There were regular closed FBI agents there, and this guy was also implemented into it as well. So we could put all this stuff to bed. Finally, it was a setup from the Dems.
Habit, Pat. Remember George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin? And George Zimmerman, you know the two networks that took the most heat for calling him a white Hispanic? Do you remember that?
Yep.
George Zimmerman, the white Hispanic that gunned down Trayvon Martin. No, they didn't wrestle on the ground. He wasn't trying to get him. He wasn't shot that way. He gunned him down, right? And George Zimmerman was a white Hispanic. And CNN, ladies and gentlemen, CNN, Jake Tapper, and NBC took the most hit for using, which one coined it, uncertain, but they both used it to death, and now they're using this. And by the way, do you know who's responsible for the Ukraine war? A white Russian named Vladimir Putin. No, it's coming, right? Everything's quite clear. They're showing you what they're going to do. And that's one story. Now you have the cover-up. Now you have petabytes of information, but they choose not to look at it until now. And then they finally look at this guy. This is incredible.
And you know why? If you think about it, guys, Trump wasn't supposed to win. Their plan, their entire plan, this wasn't supposed to come to pass. Their plan was jail him, destroy him. That didn't work. Shoot him in the freaking head. Didn't work because they hire people that have shitty aim. And we are where we are. And I mean, and Tom, I get it because I'm impatient. I have to work on my patience. I want it faster. I have the hope. I have the faith. But come on. Like the Comey and Tish James, they just got their cases, kind of dismissed, but they're going to keep going back after them. Because I'm telling you.
It's another dismissal yesterday.
Yeah, this is huge. This is huge, and it exposes them.
This investigation took 5 years?
No, I don't. Well, for them, for Kash Patel, less than a year. Less than a year to find the guy that they buried the story.
Because you're tracking the story a little bit more than me. Are you saying that under the Biden administration, this guy was just walking around, they did nothing?
And nothing, Adam, nothing. So they knew where he was. My opinion, you can't be that stupid. Adam, you can't be that stupid. They lost the case on November 10, 2020. They lost the case. But this is humiliation for the FBI.
Put the files in Biden's garage. Even he'll forget about it.
Yeah, they found the pipe bombs next to the RNC and the DNC. So this guy he was just sowing chaos? So it wasn't exactly aligned with
But here's the thing.
Party,
What was his motive? To distract Adam. When you have bombs in Washington, you know how many cops and everybody's distracted looking that way so that the January 6th mayhem can go exactly the way that they want it. And Nancy Pelosi can say, "Wait, I don't want the National Guard." It's all guys. And for how many years? It's been 5 years, and it was, oh my God, the biggest threat to democracy. We even had that maniac. Who was the guy?
The guy Steve Schmidt. Oh, January 6th was worse than 9/11. Shut up. That's the narrative that they wanted to push with the Lincoln Project. This is a joke. It was a joke. They provoked those people, and this is where we are today.
This sort of has intel, sniffs of intel, doesn't it? The pipe bombs were put at 2 locations. Number 1. Number 2, they said those pipe bombs were viable. There was real explosives. It could have been done. And they won't tell us, though, was there a timer in it? Was the timer not set properly? Was this appear to be professionally designed? The FBI, believe it or not, has a database on all the types of bombs that are used because they know which groups circulate documents to each other on the how-tos. There's how-tos out there among these groups. And I was reading last night that said the FBI needs to come out and tell us what was the design of the bombs, what do you suspect was the source, because they can say, oh, those are Middle East guys did it that way. These guys do it that way. All they say, well, no, they were viable bombs, but they didn't go off. Why didn't they go off? In your professional bomb expert opinion.
Those are important details. I just want to understand one thing. What was his motive? Why is he doing this? Who was paying him? What was his motivation? What's he looking to do? What team is he on?
That's a great question. But if you think about it, if you have to assume, why would he be on the Republican? He's anti-Trump, anti-this, loves Antifa, or whatever. All these facts. This is I'm telling you right now. You got to give them credit. They are so good because it almost worked.
By the way, Rob, what's the story about? If it does work, Kamala Harris was by the DNC. Is that the story? If you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in fact, she was reportedly at the DNC headquarters the morning of January 6th. Apparently, she was in the vicinity of where, if these explosive devices had gone off, she would have been injured or worse. They actually asked Pam Bondi about that yesterday, because you never hear the vice president-elect was almost assassinated in Washington, D.C. on January 6th. You never hear that narrative, but it almost happened. Pam Bondi was asked about that yesterday.
Oh, this is it?
Yep.
Go for it.
So, any theory on why Kamala Harris has never mentioned coming within 20 feet of being assassinated, and any news on why her Secret Service team took so long to find this bomb at the DNC?
No, but what I will tell you is that evidence has been sitting there collecting dust. This wasn't a new tip. It wasn't some new evidence. It was the hard work of President Trump's administration. Deputy Director Bongino and Director Patel. I watched them from day one come in here and say, we are going to solve this crime. And they did, working hand in hand with U.S. Attorney Piero and all of our great attorneys.
And I hope during the investigation, he actually has the Brian guy to say who did it, who told you, because if you really think about it, the Insurrection Act that they were going to try to use to not let the president run again, this was the main thing that put it over the hump, Pat. Like, you guys had white supremacist pipe bombs? Oh, he can't be the president. And look at how...
If the Biden administration knew about it, Pat, wouldn't they have invented phrases like insurrectionists and potential assassins?
Exactly.
Wouldn't they have invented that and tagged that onto it if there was a half a block possibility that Kamala could have been?
What I want to know is, okay, so
that seems odd to me.
So now that they're showing us that we know who this white man was, okay, that did what he did. Okay, so now tell us why he did that. Okay, take it a step ahead and tell us why he did that, so the American people can find out. Because if this was sitting there, find out. Have you interviewed him? Is he still around? By the way, is he dead? Is he alive?
He's alive.
He's taken into custody.
Pat show his house. Patrick, he's dead too. Not yet. Look at he's
you
not.
live in a cul-de-sac.
Look, yeah, you live in a cul-de-sac, bro. You're doing
well.
nice.
So
the end of the street.
You got to find out why he did it, who he's connected to, messages, emails, exchanges. You should be able to find out. You know, even the best criminals out there, you should be able to find out what the motive behind what they were doing. Anyways, I want to get to the next story with this. If you want to give your final
thoughts. No, just say one thing. Don't look now, but it seems like the Trump administration, all these guys are very much aligned and unified. The Epstein thing aside, we're Cash Patel and Pam Bondi and Dan Bongino, we're all catching beef. Oh my God, what's going on? Seems like everybody's falling in line right now. That's all I'm saying.
Unified on this topic?
Just in general.
No,
it seems like they're a little bit more unified than the gaslighting that was going on.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
You don't think so? They're standing there together.
No, well, that's the catch.
Who is aligned? The Bongino...
Trump administration.
Oh, yeah. On this issue, sure. And by the way, to be honest with you, I think Bondi is trying to keep her job. Yeah. Okay, I think that's what she's trying to do. You know, Bondi's trying to keep her job, and she has to have some victories. And there's been a lot of, fumbles and the way things were handled, a lot of mishandling going on there. And they're trying to redo and reframe the reputation and come out and get some stuff out there. And this is a good beginning of what things could take place. Hopefully, if they continue going. This year, for Merry Christmas, the hat we announced last year sold 3,000 like this.
All right, so that's all the news now. Now we can get on to the Nick Fuentes and Piers Morgan debate. I'm going to play this at 1.5 speed. We've all been waiting for this moment. Now, the main event, tables, ladders, and chairs match. Ding, ding, ding. Go ahead and get that like. Anyways, we have finally made it to the last portion of the show. So I hope you enjoyed everything so far, the news coverages that we did. We did just a little couple of them or whatever. But anyways, hold on one second. What's this? Anyways, gotta send a message. Women. Instagram.
The
whether you're a New York Times reader, NPR fan, a Daily Wire subscriber, or an avid consumer of all things Tucker Carlson. For several months now, there's been no avoiding the subject of Nick Fuentes. And let's be clear, the main reason you're hearing about him is because he's popular. A large number of people, especially young men, are interested in what he has to say. What that says about our society and our culture is the subject of ferocious debate. For many people, it's a grave indictment of an insidious immorality. For others, he's a product of a culture which has turned on its own and left many young people feeling listless and bitter. He's either a litmus test for right-wing hypocrisy on free speech or a walking, talking manifestation of where the line should be drawn. And a frankly preposterous amount of airtime has been spent on debating everything from his ideology to his sexuality and whether anyone should actually talk to him at all.
If I were writing a glossary entry on the Streisand effect, I wouldn't put a picture of her next to it. I would put a picture of Nick Fuentes.
They have opted to not do so when it comes to Nazis like Nick Fuentes.
Fuentes takes this guy apart brick by brick. It's a full takedown.
My concern is that people who are a bit more moderate are deeply alarmed by Nick Fuentes.
I was very happy to see that Nick Fuentes really passed that test with flying colors.
That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes.
That's the war. Can you get the beef prices down? Not crazy things that Nick Fuentes or these other loons say on social media.
Well, it looks like all the screaming about Nick Fuentes on the internet is finally dying down a little bit.
So now we had on this guy, this Fuentes guy, and never challenged him.
You should have Nick Fuentes on your show and you could ask him questions about that.
The truth is, it doesn't make a lot of sense to spend all this time talking about Nick Fuentes, but not actually to Nick Fuentes. People who say you shouldn't give him a platform overlook the very obvious fact that he already has a platform of his own, which is often bigger than most of the people complaining. And he uses it to speak unchallenged to his many followers. It's on that basis that I've invited him to appear live and uncensored on my platform. And Nick Fuentes joins me now. Nick Fuentes, welcome to Uncensored.
Hi, great to be with you.
I don't know you. I don't think we've ever met. You can correct me if that's wrong. I know about you. I know that increasingly people are talking about you in a more mainstream environment than you may be used to. So for those who know nothing about Nick Fuentes, I want this to be an opportunity to get to the real person. I don't know who that person is, but I do want to use this opportunity to get there. I've seen you talk as we prepared for this in exchanges with people and on your show, saying you fear it's going to be very hostile, it's going to be an ambush, all those kind of things. I don't intend it to be overtly hostile. I don't intend to ambush you. I intend it to be an examination of what you said on the record, an examination of what you believe or what you say you believe, and an examination of what your rising popularity says about the state of the conservative movement in America. So those are my goals from this interview. What are your goals? Why are you doing it?
I thought it'd be interesting. And, you've talked a lot about me on your show over the years, and this is the first time you actually extended the invitation. I think it might be the second, actually. I think we talked about doing it during A24 a few years ago, but you've talked a lot about me with the panel, and now you've extended the invitation to talk to me. And I think it'd be interesting for me to maybe clarify some positions and maybe get to know you a little better as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
There is a belief that you have two personas. There's one that you roll out now for podcasts and for shows like mine, where you come across as reasonable. And then there's your show on Rumble, where you often come across as having, a very unreasonable view on things. This is what Coleman Hughes said about you.
Nick Fuentes knows exactly what he's doing. He is consciously playing this double game as part of a long-term strategy to become popular enough to take the reins of power, at which point he plans to pivot towards the extreme and unpopular policies that he advocates daily on Rumble.
So first of all, what is your response to that?
Well, first of all, I would say that Coleman Hughes is a propagandist. He works for the Free Press, which is run by Barry Weiss. So I think you have to consider the source. And Barry Weiss is a pro-Israel partisan. Free Press is just bought out by CBS for $150 million by Larry Ellison or his son David Ellison. And so I think that.
Well, I'm also contemplating next episode. I probably am going to talk about the big purchase of Warner Brothers between Netflix and Paramount. You got David Ellison, the son of Larry Ellison, trying to purchase Warner Brothers, and then you also got Netflix, who are also in the bid to purchase Warner Brothers. It seems like, and then you also, another key point I also have to mention too as well, that the people that are funding the purchase on the Paramount side happen to be Jared Kushner's finance agency. So that's interesting. I'm contemplating that I should probably cover that or not. I probably am going to cover it. So just give me a minute. I'm contemplating it. But yeah, next episode is probably going to be that. That's going to be a big one. I know Nick talked about it. Everyone's already talking about this. This is a very big thing right now between who's going to purchase Warner Brothers. The normies are sitting there having the conversations about this, that it's, it's Trump owning it, whatever. No, it's actually the Jews are going to own it. And here's why. But anyways, that's for the next one. That's for the next one. This is just for the debate right now between Nick and Piers. I won't interrupt much. I'll just let this play through. I'll come in with some, commentary here and there.
It's coming from a particular point of view. We can't pretend like that's coming from a vacuum or from some fixed position. That's coming from a propaganda outlet that's in favor of Israel. That's first. But second, I would say he is right about the two personas. And I think that everybody understands this on some level. On my show, I make jokes and I use rhetoric and I'm hyperbolic because for a long time I had an audience that was small on these like dissident platforms. I was on D Live for many years. A lot of people don't even know what that is. And so I had a small following and we had sort of like an in-group sense of humor and memes and things like that. And you talk about it one way on a freewheeling live stream when I'm by myself and I'm ranting and we make jokes and we play devil's advocate, we play with different positions. But then when you sit down in an interview like this one and people ask me a good faith question, what do you actually believe? Well, then I clarify and I say, well, here I'm not joking, here I'm not being hyperbolic, I'm not being rhetorical. I'll tell you precisely what I believe. As far as this idea that I'm going to get power and then turn into Hitler, that just sounds totally insane to me. I'll be honest, it just sounds insane.
Do you have aspirations for political power?
Not really. I think that if I wanted to run for office, I wouldn't say a lot of the things that I say. I don't know that a lot of people would vote for me. I tend to offend everybody, even a lot of people that like me. So no, I'm a truth teller. I like to tell the truth. I like to do my live stream.
Yeah, who is Nick Fuentes? Tell me about your upbringing. I know you grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. Tell me about your early years.
Early how? Like my childhood or a little bit
your
later?
childhood, yeah.
Well, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in LaGrange Park, as you say. My parents are ethnics. My father's half Mexican, half Irish. My mother's Italian. And they both came from a pretty rough upbringing themselves. They both were raised by single mothers, not because of divorce, but because both of their fathers had died. They endured a lot of dysfunction. And I think that's one of the reasons they came together and they related to each other and they wanted to create a normal upbringing for their children. They wanted to have a normal family life. And so they moved out to LaGrange Park away from the city. And they raised me and my sister and really put us first. I think that's a big reason why I tend to have a lot of these family values or Christian values. My mother quit her job and stayed at home to raise us. And so I have a very close relationship with my parents, with my sister. We're a very tight family. And we grew up in a pretty idyllic town. And maybe we can sort of get into a conversation about politics from this. I loved my upbringing. My mom stayed at home. My dad was working. We're in a mostly white suburb in Chicago. I was maybe half Catholic, half Protestant. It was a baseball town. I played baseball for many years. In Chicago, we love our hot dogs. We have our baseball parade and get a hot dog. And so I love where I came from. I love the city. It's a working class city. I love the people here. They're very good, humble, down to earth, decent people. And I guess I had my political, not to jump ahead, but this is a big part of where my political awakening came from. I sort of left this bubble, if you could call it that. When I went to college in 2016, I went to Boston University. And I read a lot of things online, and I realized the country does not look like LaGrange Park. It doesn't look like Western Springs or Hinsdale or Elmhurst. It looks very different. The country's undergoing a radical transformation because of immigration. And so I saw that and I said, this is not really a desirable change. I don't like the south side of Chicago or the west side or LA or certain parts of Boston as much as I like where I came from. And I guess that's what made me an American nationalist. I said, I want to preserve my home and the things that are familiar to me and the things I like about my home, what makes it America. So that's a little bit about my background. I don't know where you want to go with that. But
well, my first obvious question is, were your parents immigrants to the United States, or were their parents, or were their grandparents? In other words, at some stage, I presume, there were immigrants in your family who came to the US. Is that correct?
There were. I believe my mother was fourth generation and my father was third generation. So their ancestors came here on my mom's side in the 1860s, I believe, the first wave of Italian immigration. My father's ancestors, I think they came around the turn of the century in 1900.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would certainly exist, but like you said, maybe not as an American. Certainly that's influenced in some measure. But I think that the kind of immigration that we had for a long time in the country, it's different than the immigration that we have now. And let's just say for openers, it's different immigrants. They're coming from a different place with a different culture, a different religion. It's not the same as it was. So first, you have a qualitative difference. My ancestors, for the most part, I have 3 European grandparents from Ireland and Italy, 1 from Mexico. They came from Europe. They came from a society where there's a common ancestry, there's a common religion, common civilization. The people that have come in since 65, since Hart-Celler, they're coming from China, India, the Northern Triangle, Mexico, Venezuela. And so first, they're just different people. Secondly, it's a quantitative difference. There's way more, and it's an unceasing, always increasing wave. For the first 3 or 4 waves of immigration, you would have a major influx of immigrants and then it would stop. And you'd have another wave and then it would stop. This one, it just keeps going up for 35 years and it's too many. So that's really where I would draw the distinction between maybe where I originate from. I would even just simply call that immigration. What this is an invasion. It's a completely different policy.
But you mentioned Mexico in that.
I don't mean to I'll cut in right now. Yeah, I agree with that. This is a definitely different immigration than what America used to be accustomed to. Especially when you let in a bunch of people before that don't assimilate, comparatively when we did used to let in a bunch of immigrants that did assimilate to the culture and did become American nationalists over time through generations. Hell, even when they first got here, they became American nationalists. Now it's just like assimilation is white supremacy. So he's definitely hitting a nail on the coffin when it comes to that, describing that. And I already touched on that earlier.
List. And your father is half Mexican. So, yeah, I mean, by your criteria, part of the invasion would include your father, presumably, and his immediate descendants who came from Mexico.
That's not necessarily.
Not really true, because when my father's ancestors came here, it was a small fraction of the total immigrants that came from Mexico. I don't believe that we should have zero immigrants forever, or even zero immigrants from non-white countries. But you have to draw the distinction. My father's father, he was here in the 40s and 50s. It was his parents, or I believe either his parents or grandparents, that came here even earlier. Up until 1965, 90% of the immigrants were coming from Europe. I have no problem with that. If we have 10% of them coming from Mexico or Latin America, maybe that's reasonable, but that's not what it is now. Now you've got 10 million illegals in 4 years under Joe Biden, and you got millions more legal immigrants from China, India, Venezuela, El Salvador, and it's so many with no break for assimilation, and they're all from non-white countries. It's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe everybody's a product of their environment. I've interviewed thousands of people. I mean, maybe 3, 4, 5,000 people from all different walks of life. But the one common theme I would say is everyone's a product of their environment. And I was reading some stuff about you in the last few days. There was an episode of your podcast where you talked about your father, Bill Fuentes, and how he wouldn't take the family, including you, to certain restaurants because he...
Why did he say his name on air? When I first saw this, like, bro, Piers, what the fuck are you doing? Why would you dox his father's name? And he's gonna mention a story about his father and whatever, about a restaurant, you know, black people, whatever. But Nick has never said his father's name on the air. That's the difference. Piers actually said his father and actually doxed his father, who's still a public figure.
Believe they were associated with African Americans. We would be deciding where to go to eat, you said. What are we going to do for dinner tonight? It was a running joke. Me and my sister would say Applebee's, and my dad would say we would never eat at Applebee's. Not in a million years should you be caught dead, Fuentes said about Applebee's. Go to a different restaurant, a local restaurant. No Applebee's, no Red Lobster. That is commonly known as black fare. And you also shared another story about your family and restaurants. It said, before me and my sister were born, my family had a saying about Olive Garden that contains the N-word that we're not allowed to say. So my question, based on that anecdote that you say on your own podcast, is, do you think you grew up in a racist environment, that your father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you?
Well, I would say it's a new low. I've been attacked for being a racist many times, but to attack my father, to attack my parents based on anecdotes, I would say that's sort of a new low.
Hang on, it's your anecdote.
Yeah, but he's not here to defend himself.
You are.
And my parents are.
You told the story.
And I will. And
I'm not trying to ambush you. As I said at the start, Nick, to be clear.
No, it's not an ambush.
Nick, to be clear, I'm not ambushing you. I'm literally reading an anecdote that you revealed on your podcast. It's you that's put it in the public domain.
I know.
I'm simply asking you whether my assessment of that, which is that your father didn't want to take you to certain restaurants because of what you refer to as, they were commonly known as black fare, whether that attitude to African Americans in that instance permeated to you. It's a reasonable question.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think everybody knows what that is, but I'll address it. I'll engage with it, and I'll defend my father from the charge of racism.
Sure.
No, my parents are not racist, and they've never been racist. I'll tell you about my parents. They used to have a school in Chicago in the South Loop where they instructed people on how to shoot firearms. It was a security school, and most of the clients were black. And I believe actually one of their clients was Larry Hoover's son at one point, sort of a funny story. And so most of their clients would come in from the South Side of Chicago. My grandmother, she grew up in the projects in the city. And so my family, being in Chicago, being ethnics, being Italian, Irish, Mexican, in the West Side, on Taylor Street, all over the city. My family for many generations have lived near and around black people. And look, my views about black people and their views about black people are shaped with experiences with black people. And what they will tell you, what my parents would say if they were here, is that for many, many years, the older generations of black people were very respectful, very humble, very decent. In fact, my grandma used to have an anecdote. She grew up in a lot of dysfunction. Her mother was mentally ill, and they would be having dinner in the projects, and there'd be so much chaos and dysfunction and disagreement and fighting. And she would look across the way out the window at a black family in the other apartment, and they'd be holding hands around the table saying grace. And this is sort of the culture that used to prevail. But now what you have in the city is that there's no accountability for the black people. And now Chicago has become a complete dump because these teenagers go out and they take over the city. They call them teen takeovers. That's the euphemism for it. They're teenagers, but they all come from the same neighborhood. They drive up there and they mug people and attack people and they destroy cars and destroy shops. We had the Festival of Lights a couple of weeks ago. It's supposed to be a family event. And they light up the trees and they, there's a big parade. I was in the parade one year and you had a bunch of black people there shooting each other. 7 people shot, a 14-year-old killed in the Magnificent Mile. And I know there's a lot of black people that feel the same way about this. They say, we've lost control of the city. And we're looking for accountability. We have a lot of black people that are always outraged about racism, outraged about attitudes from white people, but they're never ashamed of some of these behaviors, never ashamed of some of the things that go on. And that's why I think there's a lot of negative attitudes these days. And so, again, I think those attitudes, you say I'm a product of my environment. I am. And so are my parents and my grandparents. Unlike you, because you're not even American, in Chicago, we have to live in a big, diverse city where there's a lot of different kinds of people. And
I live in a big diverse city. I live in London. It's one of the biggest and most diverse cities in the world.
But it's not the same.
Well, actually, it's a big diversity. The only difference is we don't have the gun violence because we don't have guns. That's a whole different story. I don't want to get into that with you. I have got into that before.
You got a knife problem. You got sword problems.
We have problems with
Aladdin.
We have problems with violent crime. I make no pretense of it. So the idea that somehow I'm cosseted in London because I'm not in Chicago.
I didn't say that.
Well, you kind of implied it. But I guess my point about the environment, I'm not saying you are a product of your environment. I'm saying most people are in some capacity. When I read that anecdote, which just to remind you, it's not something I have put out there. You told this story, right? And you said that
you said this. We're looping. You said this.
No,
already.
you haven't really directly, I think, responded to it, which is whether your father would not take you to certain restaurant chains because he associated them with black Americans. Is that true?
No, well, see here, if you're in America, you would say that Olive Garden is not real Italian food. Applebee's, TGI Fridays, and stuff is a load of crap. My dad was just...
Bruh. He's just not understanding. Piers is really taking this to extreme. That's just old. That's literally old boomer jokes and all that. That's just what it is. I mean, I used to go eat Applebee's not to show my stereotype side. You know, I know I identify as mixed. Well, I am mixed. And it's not that I identify, I know what my race is, but just like, bruh, I still have my black side of me. Just still likes. I still like Applebee's. I don't go eat there in person. I just order my food. I don't like eating around a bunch of niggers. I'll just keep it real.
It's a food stop, but no, it's got nothing to do with that. My best friend in first grade was a black guy. We're not a racist family, so.
Okay, so when you told the story, I'm just curious. So when you told that anecdote, which clearly on the face of it is racist, right? You're basically saying your father made racist decisions about where you would go as a family to eat. Are you saying, well, I'm just going to ask you a question. Are you saying that when you told that story, you didn't mean to infer that he was racist? And do you understand why when somebody like me reads that anecdote for the first time, as I did this week, I reach a different conclusion?
Well, I understand what you're doing, which is a sort of making of a murderer. How did he become racist? Well, his father didn't eat Olive Garden because that's not real Italian food.
I'm literally reminding you of something you said on your show, which led me to conclude a certain thing. If I'm wrong, tell me.
Yeah, it was said in jest as a humorous anecdote, and now you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is his parents are racist. He comes from a long line of racists. And I think everybody knows my parents are boomers. And these people come, well, you're a boomer, I guess, too, in a way,
60.
right? You were born in 19. Yeah, so you're a boomer also. Or maybe you're a Gen Xer, I suppose it's sort of on the cusp. But it's a humorous anecdote. These are kind of the attitudes of baby boomers in society, but you're trying to spin it into a narrative, which is you're a product of your environment. Your dad's racist because of this joke. Now you're a racist, and I don't think that's a fair characterization.
Okay, people can make their own minds up. They can go back and listen to you say it. I mean, the beauty of what I'm going to talk to you about in this interview is that almost all of it is just going to be reminding you what you have said and asking you what you meant. Your position about that story is that it was a joke. Okay, I want to come to something else you said. This is where you talk about Jews, women, and blacks. Let's take a listen.
They're always coming up with, no, it's not the Jews. No, it's not women. No, it's not blacks. It's actually really complicated. No, it fucking isn't at all. Jews are running society. Women need to shut the fuck up. Blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. And we would live in paradise. It's that simple.
I agree.
Okay. Would you like to clarify what you meant there?
That's all true. That's 100% true.
I agree.
Everything I said in that clip is true.
Including that blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part.
Yeah. Yes.
You notice how he didn't dispute the Jews run the society part. I noticed how Piers did not talk about that part, but he's so dead set on the blacks part. He's trying to attack him on the racism part, not the Jews run the society part. He didn't even want to challenge that part. And for the most part, yeah, I agree. Black people do need to be in jail for the most part, especially all the fucking criminals. That's going without saying.
But all of them?
No, for the most part.
What does the most part mean? What percentage of American blacks would you like to see in prison?
Whatever the percentages of the murderers. I think it's 1 in 20 black men will commit a murder in their lifetime. So maybe let's say that 5%.
Oh, so you're talking about black people who murder people?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But you didn't say that. You just said blacks need to be imprisoned for the most part. You didn't clarify that you were talking about black murderers.
Right. No, you're right. That's a good addition to that. That's a great point.
Do you think it's funny or?
I do. I think it's hilarious. I think it's totally true.
Do you think a black American would find it funny? Do you think that blacks should be imprisoned for the?
Bro, he said it. Is Piers already twist around words for the most part? For the most part means for the most part. How is he not? I get what he's doing. He's doing the journalist thing where they twisting around the words to make it seem like he meant this instead of he actually meant that. Bro, these journalists are just always full of shit, man. I'm telling you.
Nice part.
Blacks are my biggest fans. I get high fives all the time. They say, Nick Fuentes, I love your show. They agree with me. And you want to know why? Here's the difference. Black people are the most victimized by other black people. You think black people want to live in the hood, in the ghetto, and get shot all the time? That's what happens in the south side of Chicago. You should come here. I'll take you there. We could go to Garfield Park.
My son went to Chicago University for a year, actually, several years ago.
Yeah, that's a bubble. That's a bubble. You think you're in Chicago and Hyde Park? You don't know Chicago. Go a little bit west, see what it's like over there. And I'll tell you, black people agree with me because they're tired of it too. And maybe not most of them, but a lot of them agree with what I say about that because they know how it is. That's why the first thing they do when they make a little bit of money is they go and leave to another neighborhood.
Okay, so what was just remind me again, the percentage of black men who commit murder in America. What was the percentage you gave me?
It's 1 in 20. 1 in 20.
It's 1 in 100.
No, it's 1 in 20.
No. Less than 1 in 100 black US men commit murder. That's the most up-to-date crime statistics in America.
That's not true. I've seen other statistics. They say 1 in 20 will eventually commit a murder.
Your rate means that you're saying that 5 times as many black men commit murder as the official crime statistics say.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a report, I believe, on X by Data Hazard. I'll have to go and double check that for you. But yes, there's some pretty shocking evidence that says that it's far more alarming than you would think.
Okay, but you would accept that the official crime statistics are 1 in 100? Or you wouldn't accept that statistic?
I don't know. I don't have it in front of me, but I've seen other evidence. Like I said, Data Hazard on X, I believe, produced a report about a year ago. It said 1 in 20. But I mean, whether it's 1 in 20 or 1 in 100, that's a lot of people, Piers. I mean,
sure, a lot of white people commit murder too. Well, they do, don't
okay, but it's about proportionality. I mean, white people are 65% of the population. Blacks are.
Piers is doing his thing when he's doing the whataboutism. Okay, well, blacks doing this, but white people do this too. Whataboutism, like, bruh. These liberals cannot contain with the argument. They always just got to either play whataboutism or just move on to something else and just try to get you on that point. That's what Piers is going to start doing throughout this whole like debate exchange between him and Nick. He can't get him on one point, then I just go on to another thing and try to get him on that, and then it just go on to another thing, and then he just responds with just like emotionality for the most part, because like he knows that he really can't beat him because Nick is just doubling down on what he says, because as he should. He's not wrong in anything he said.
13%. Mm-hmm. And I think anybody would tell you that more black people proportionally commit violent crime than white people, and people vote with their feet. People would rather pay a much higher property tax. What's with the interruptions?
I'm sorry.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You know, you look at in Chicago, in New York, these neighborhoods are so stratified. People would rather pay a high tax rate. They'd rather pay a much higher property value to live in a less diverse, less black neighborhood because they don't want to live around the violence. And I think that when you look at even on the public transit, the subway, the Blue Line, you know, people don't want to go there because they know who occupies and menaces the public transit. It is these people like Daniel Penny had to deal with. It's people like Irina Zarutska had to deal with. And that's just the uncomfortable reality.
You've also said you don't want to live near black people. Let's take a listen to this clip.
I'm a new generation of white person. I'm not living around blacks. Sorry. You know, I want white kids, and I don't want my white kids bringing home black people to marry. It's racial for me. And you call me racist? Oh, very Christian of you. I don't give a fuck.
I mean, it couldn't be clearer, really, unless you want to say that's another of your jokes, but you're basically saying, yeah, I'm a racist, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with saying you're a racist?
Totally. I think everybody's racist. I think everybody, if we're being honest, is racist. I think everybody, the only people that aren't racist or pretend not to be are white people to their detriment. Everybody else is racist.
Earlier in the interview, you really got aggrieved at the idea that your father was a racist. You wanted to make emphatically sure
my father's.
He's not.
Because my father doesn't share my same views on that.
So he's the exception to the everyone's a racist.
Well, everybody's a little bit racist. You're right. So maybe everybody. The difference is you're attacking my father. You know, he can get fired from his job.
I'm not attacking your father.
You are.
No, I'm not. I don't know your father. Yeah. And to be clear, I have no knowledge about him at all.
Well, then let's leave him out of it. Let's leave him out of it if you don't know him.
Hang on, Nick. You put that story into the public domain on your show. I'm simply reminding you of what you told everybody, millions of people, about your father. If you now want to retract it, fine. If you want to say it was a joke, which is what your position was earlier, fine. But I'm allowed to put to you things you said publicly. That's not unfair. That's not me targeting your father. You put that story about him out
You know
there.
what you're doing. You know what you're doing.
I'm asking you about a pretty shocking anecdote, which to me looked like you were saying your father made decisions about where you as a family would eat based on skin color of people who worked at these places. If you say, or use them, if you say that is not what you meant, that's fine. You can respond any way you like. But the idea I can't ask you about it without you saying I'm attacking your father is ridiculous.
Well, you are, and you know what you're doing. And there's a political culture in America where if you have the wrong views, you get fired from your job. And my father has a job. And if you go on here and say you charge him with racism or something, and I'm put in a position where I don't look like I'm sticking to my guns if I don't say my father's a racist, you're putting him in jeopardy, and he's not here to defend himself or explain his views. And it's very low. And I think you know exactly what you're doing, and people can see what you're doing. I'll defend my views. And I think that, you know, so let's leave him out of it. Let's just not talk about my father because my father isn't here. I'm here.
Okay, well, then you accept you shouldn't. Listen, that's fine. But then do you accept you shouldn't talk about your father on your show, and you shouldn't tell?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So it's fine for you to put a story out there, which would make most people who listened to that story or watched it at the time on your show conclude that he was racist. It's fine for you to do that. But if I then ask you about it, I'm the one who's being unfair and I've crossed a line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay,
yes, you're being malicious.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Listen, people are watching this live. They can draw their own conclusions about whether what I just did.
Will.
Yeah, I'm sure afterwards, by the way, you'll say he ambushed me. With your own words. With your own words.
That's a little presumptuous. I'm not going to say it's an ambush, but I think that's a low blow. And I think you know what you're doing, and that's fine. You're a tabloid journalist. I expected that. I don't think it's an ambush because I knew it would be like this. And people will see what you're doing, and I think they'll say it's low. But as far as you want to talk about racism,
I do.
Let's talk about racism.
Okay,
let's leave my dad out of it.
Look, you've admitted you're a racist, correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Own it.
Okay, that's fine.
He's
You're
owning
perfectly
it.
entitled
Let's go.
in a free democratic society to stare down the barrel of his camera and tell me you're a racist. People can judge you accordingly. Many people who have assumed that you're racist will now have heard it from your own lips. That's fine.
There you go.
That's the point. The point of this interview is to go over the things you said, which have led people to reach conclusions about you, and to ascertain whether those conclusions are fair and reasonable or not. That's it.
Thank you.
Nick is just gonna state shit that he's already said on the show, bro. Like, you're not gonna find nothing new about Nick. Yeah, and what he said about everyone's a little bit racist. Everyone's racist, okay? That is unfathomably true. People can try to sugarcoat that they don't have a racist take or whatever. They all do. Everyone does, okay? We are technically united by it. People sit up here and say, oh, I'm not a racist. I mean, like, if you're not a racist, quite frankly, I mean, I don't think necessarily I can trust you 100%. Because we all have racist takes. We all have racial biases. Let's just stop the bullshit right now. It's 2025. People that still get offended about the N-word, blacks that still get offended about that pathetic bitch ass shit. I don't even want to be near you if you're gonna be crying about it all day and you're gonna try to assault somebody over it. You're a liability to me and to what I represent. Freedom of speech is freedom of speech, regardless of like my feelings towards or whatever. Doesn't hurt my feelings at all. So that is very, very true. I agree with Nick on that.
Play you another clip. This is what you talk about why white people are justified in being racist. Let's take a listen to this.
First, white people are every single bit justified in being racist. Every single bit justified, to the extent that that means going out of your way to avoid black people when you see them.
Do you stand by
that? Absolutely.
So white people should go out of their way to avoid black people when they see them?
Absolutely. They would be wise.
Why?
Because it's a lose-lose proposition. If you're Irina Zarutska and you don't walk the other way, you get stabbed to death and you die. If you're somebody else and you walk on the subway and you stand near a black person or something, maybe it's fine. It's a lose-lose proposition. So no, I think that white people have been beaten into submission, that we're afraid to tell the truth about it. And the truth is that when you go into these major cities like New York or Chicago, I believe she was in North Carolina, there is a menace, which is young, black, adolescent men. They're extremely violent. And we have been told that we have to pretend like they are every other person. We have to be colorblind to that. And we're supposed to go and be in the midst of all this danger. And I think that at this point, it's gotten out of control. You look at the BLM movement, they said that the reason that black people are violent, or the reason there's crime, is because of police brutality. Redlining or all these other things. They said we need to get rid of the police. We need to defund them. And a lot of cities did. A lot of cities like Chicago, for example, the police changed the rules of engagement. They don't chase them. It's not a felony if you steal a certain amount of merchandise. They won't chase them on foot. And now the city's totally up for grabs. And now whether you're in the Gold Coast or whether you're on the Mag Mile or you're in the worst neighborhoods in the city, you might get shot, you might get mugged, someone might run up on you. And I tell my followers, it is better to be perceived as racist or racist and walk the other way and maybe keep your life than to say, I'm a good anti-racist. I don't mind that this person's making me uncomfortable. Maybe he's looking a little froggy. I'm going to sit down because I'm a good person and get stabbed, mugged, whatever. And by the way, this is a strategy. They call it the friendly stranger. There's a crew of them. They do this in Chicago. They stand outside bars, black people. They approach strangers. It's a robbery crew. And they pretend to be a friendly stranger, and then they mug them. And stupid white people say, oh, hi, yeah, nice to meet you. You know, they grin, they laugh, they put up with the nonsense, and then they get mugged. Or worse. Sometimes they get executed. And so as a white person...
How do you feel?
Justifiable in being racist right there. That is a justifiable case. I mean, yeah, you don't want to get mugged. You don't want to get stabbed. Bro. He said it earlier too. It's like, bro, this affects everyone. It's not just limited to just the white people. This affects every fucking body. Adolescent blacks are so many, bro. These little fucking niggas need to be locked up, bro. Excuse me, I'm on YouTube. Niggas need to be locked up.
About mass shootings at school?
I think they're bad.
Who do you think commits the vast majority of the mass shootings?
I'm sure it's white people.
Right. So how do you feel about that?
It's bad.
I think that white people do more antisocial violence. I think black people participate in more gang violence. I think that's a difference.
What's the difference to the victims?
There's no difference to the victim, but it's a different kind of crime. And it's a different proportion also. Do you know what percentage of white people are school shooters?
I know that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools in America this century were perpetrated by young white men. And I'm
what proportion?
I'm curious whether your advice would be to people who have kids in these schools.
Working?
Should they avoid?
He doesn't want to answer the question because that would just literally just kill his argument right there.
Should they avoid white people at school? Should people with the kids at school avoid young white men at school?
No.
Okay.
Do you know what per capita means? Do you know proportionality? There are more black people proportionally that engage in violent crime or involved in gangs, especially in these major cities, than there are white people that are school shooters compared to the entire white population, and everybody understands that.
Two-thirds of mass shootings at school perpetrated by white people.
But what proportion of white men commit school shootings? That's the question.
I've just told you. It's 60-65% of school shootings by white people.
You're telling me what proportion of school shootings are committed by white people. I'm saying what proportion of white people have committed school shootings. Are you playing dumb or are you just not that smart?
What difference does that make to the children lying dead on the ground?
See, now you want to jump on the victims. The difference is you're asking, would you fear white people or black people? And that's the difference.
No, what I'm saying to you is, by your logic, if we now have agreed that the vast majority of mass shootings in schools are committed by white people and predominantly young white men, then presumably your advice would be to avoid young white men because they perpetrate these massacres. But it won't be because they're white, right?
So are you playing dumb or are you actually dumb?
Maybe
it's
I'm
about
dumb.
proportionality.
Maybe I'm dumb.
You are because you're, well, I don't think you are dumb. I think you're smart actually, but you're deliberately avoiding per capita. And everybody knows that's the difference. What proportion of white men are school shooters? It's probably 0.00001%. What proportion of black men have committed violent crimes? It's probably like 5%. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but it's very high. And I would add to that, even as it concerns schools. Why do you think parents pay a super high property tax to live in a school district where there's white people? Because they know that if they go to the black school, it's going to be the Bloods and the Crips. It's going to be gangs. It's going to be, you talk about school shootings. Nobody talks about all the school shootings that are committed by gangbangers in and around the school and all the other violence that's associated with that. I mean, these schools in the south side of Chicago, it's just not.
I have an answer for you, Nick. So the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings is actually the same. The black and white.
For white people, the proportion of
the proportion.
Are you hearing
Where is he getting that
No,
from?
no.
I think the problem with your statistics is a lot of them don't bear much scrutiny. We have a bunch of fact checkers checking all this in real time because you do have a tendency to just come out with a lot of old baloney.
Bruh, if that was the case, what he's saying right now, if they're about the same, I've never ran into bruh. He's basically saying it's the same degree as a black person. The crimes that are perpetrated by blacks, it's the same on the white side too as well. That is completely not true at all. Bruh, you have a likely more chance of being robbed and being killed by a black guy than you do a white guy. That is just facts, bro. If that's the case, the white neighborhoods would be, the statistics of violent crimes that happen in a white majority neighborhood or a white or full-on white neighborhood would be higher than it already it would be way higher. And honestly speaking, when you look at the stats when it comes to that, they're the most safest neighborhoods in America. It's not even close. Now, of course, if you do have some type of statistics where it says this white neighborhood is dealing with some type of violent crime increase, that would be burglary. That would be people breaking in and robbing the places. That would be adolescents coming from the shithole side of town or the ghettos to come over there to the white neighborhoods and break into their apartments or buildings or houses. It happens a lot in California, for example. California is the hub for this. Like especially Los Angeles, Beverly Hills, they have break-ins all the time over there. That's from all the gangbangers that come from from the ghettos to come there and break into all the celebrities' houses whenever they're not there because they travel so much and they're never home. And these guys come in there and break into their houses and just steal their shit. So that's just completely, like he says, like the crime is equal between whites and blacks is insane. If that's the case, then it would be far more dangerous to be in a white neighborhood than just like a black neighborhood. That's just ludicrous.
And when you say, well, it's true. And when you're confronted with reality, you don't like it.
What's the figure? What proportion of white people have committed school shootings? With white people as the denominator and white people that have committed school shootings as the numerator, what's that percentage?
For both black and whites, the proportion of the population who carry out mass shootings generally is about the same.
No, tell me the number, and then
the only focus of your attention is the black shootings, the black crime. You don't want to live around black people. You want to avoid.
Far more gang violence has happened more than school shootings from adolescent or from antisocial whites. That's just a fact. I think this, I believe it was like last year, we had like multiple school shootings in 1 year for the first time in a long time, and one of them was a black kid. So it wasn't all white, and someone was trans, whatever. But that's insane to say that. And there is no stat that backs that up. If he found one stat that says that stuff and all the other ones that contradicts that, then that one stat doesn't really matter.
black people. You don't want interracial marriages or relationships that may produce black people. And yet, when I point out to you that there are many parts of crime in America where actually there's a majority of white people that perpetrate them, you don't care. You don't have any interest in that. It doesn't exercise your mind. Maybe
no one's buying this. This argument lost. No one is buying this. Everybody understands per capita, and people can even see what you race ahead and say, well, we're comparing the proportion of white and black school shooters. I said, no, compare the proportion of school shooters that are white versus violent criminals that are black, because that was the basis of the monologue, is that you're very likely, if you encounter black people or a young black man in the city, that you're going to be the victim of a violent crime, of a robbery, a mugging, a car theft, a carjacking, or a murder. That's the difference, and it's about proportionality, and everybody sees past that, because we all live in reality. You want to talk about product of your environment? People that live in New York, Chicago, LA, we live in reality. We live in this environment. We see what it's like, and the threat, the danger in terms of probability it's not even comparable. And I would say this to your point. If you're in a high school and truly, if you see a white person who looks like a little autistic, he's got the SSRI stare and he reaches for a backpack, people joke and say, run. Similarly, if you see a jalopy pulling up with a bunch of black people in it and they got their pants around the ankles, you're going to run also. And I'm saying the same thing. The difference is, the latter happens much more often. It's much more common. You know, in Chicago, there's like 10,000 carjackings and car thefts every day. It's in the thousands. It happens all the time. How many mass shootings committed by autistic SSRI white people? I don't even know. I mean, it's probably in the single digits in the last decade in the city. That's the difference, and everybody knows that. But you're really just trying to carry water for liberal ideology. It's an ideological position.
I'm really not. I can absolutely say, yes, there is way too much black on black crime, for example, involving guns in Chicago.
And black and white also.
Yes, but there is way too much gun violence in Chicago, right? I mean, it's indisputable. I've got no problem saying that. The difference is I don't then lead myself into a thought process where I have to avoid all black people in case they shoot me. And you've already conceded that you are a racist. So when people hear you then say, I don't want to be living anywhere near black people, they already have heard you say, I'm a racist. So they assume you're doing that because of people's skin color. I don't think you would probably dispute that, right?
Well, you're separating two different things. The monologue, when I said I don't want to live around black people, that was after Irina Zarutska got shot. And it's true. I mean, they are a largely in this city, in Chicago, the south side, the west side, huge criminal population, and I don't want to live anywhere near it. And I do. I want to live in a white neighborhood. I think that that's extremely desirable. And I think even black people.
Again, Nick, you're perfectly entitled to that view. But when you have obviously prefaced all this by saying, I am a racist, unashamedly, then people will assume that all your thought processes about all of these issues are driven by an aversion to people based on their skin color, which is the purest personification of racism.
Well, it's not an aversion. I would say it's the opposite. I like my own people. My own people are familiar to me, and I think that's true across the board. I think that people seek out other people that are like themselves, and every other group does this, whether it's blacks, Hispanics, Asians. You know, I get a lot of attacks when I talk about that I'm against interracial marriage. And what's funny is that every other group is against interracial or interethnic marriage. Jews, Chinese,
you're the product of an
Hispanics.
interracial marriage.
Yeah, I mean, that's debatable.
Not really.
Not really. Sure.
No, you're the product of an interracial marriage, and your father is part Mexican. You're literally the very person you've just told me you want to avoid.
What race is Hispanic? Is that a race?
I mean, bro, it's not that big of a deal if he doesn't want to do a date outside of his race. I mean, I'm not even going to spend too much time giving a monologue on this. It's just not that big of a deal. I don't know why people treat that as like a big of a deal and say that's just a form of racism. Like, I don't understand anywhere where there's hatred at. Every race says that stuff. He's right. Blacks say it. Asians say it. I know Asian dads are very strict about their women not dating outside their race, but it's just like, bro, it's just stupid, bro. It's a stupid argument. I don't even care too much about that.
Well, what do you think it is?
I'm asking you, what race is Hispanic?
Hispanic, of course it's a race. It's called Hispanic.
It's a mix between two races. It's a mix between indigenous Americans
and
Europeans.
It's not white.
Well, apparently you're more of a racial purist than me. You got like
really. You just keep saying you only want to live in a white neighborhood, but you're literally from a mixed race background yourself. You've literally got Mexican blood.
I know, and I live in a non-white neighborhood too. I'm trying to get out of here though, but I'm trying to get out. But here's the thing.
Like, bro, they act like this is their form of argumentation. Oh, you're mixed too as well. It's like, bro, I remember I was arguing with my ex. She says, like, oh, you're black. You're black too. How could you be racist to black people, whatever? I can be racist to whoever the fuck I want to be racist to, baby. It doesn't matter who. I'm a mixed race guy. Higher IQ. You know, very bright. Not dumbass. I can be racist to whoever the fuck I want to be racist to. And if I understand the racial realities, the stereotypes, and I see exactly who's committing the majority of the crimes, why the fuck would I want to be around that race a lot of times when I know my likelihood of survival on this earth is very low? Because these niggas out here slanging dope and want to kill each other. Come on. They kill each other they kill each other for video games and stepping on each other's shoes. Not to be the stereotype. You know, these niggas up here do all this type of shit, and you really think me being racist and me being aware that black people commit a lot of crimes on average? Yeah. Look, I'm sorry, but it's just the truth.
Do you have any non-white? Do you have any non-white friends? Genuine question.
Most of my friends are non-white. Most of my friends are not, and non-white people love my show.
How many are black? How many of your friends are black?
Many of them, like at least a dozen.
Wow.
Ye being one who you know, Sneeko being another who you also know.
Yeah. So how do they feel when you say you just want to be away from any black people, walk away from them?
Well, you know what Ye told me? I'll tell you verbatim what he said. He said, so you use the N-word. I said, yeah. He goes, well, when niggas are being niggas. I said, so true. That's so true. So they feel like they're in complete agreement with me.
What does that mean?
It means that even black people know how black people can behave.
Yes.
Even black people understand it.
It's the
and they know that it
truth.
doesn't come from a place of, when you use the word aversion, that's the first thing I'll actually dispute.
Okay.
It's not an aversion on the basis of skin color, because that would seem to suggest it's like a stubborn, irrational bigotry. I don't consider myself a bigot. I consider myself a racial realist. I'm realistic about how the races are, and I speak provocatively about it. And I speak provocatively about our tribalistic instincts and tendencies as human beings. And I'm not a liberal ideologue that says that over time and with enough education, we're all going to see this great brotherhood where we're colorblind and everybody's the same. You know, I don't think that's ever going away. I think that race is real. It's not just skin deep. It matters to us and it matters to each other. And black people know that, and Hispanics know that, and Asians know that, and people like me that have partial Mexican ancestry, we know that too. And I think on that basis, we can have mutual respect and understanding, not aversion based on skin color.
The reason I use the word aversion is you literally said that you should walk the other way if you see black people. That is an aversion to black people based on their skin color.
No, that's called economy of information. That's economy of information. That's safety. And I said in the same monologue, if you watch it, it's like, I feel sorry. The problem is you clip the 10 seconds. I don't know if you watched the whole show, but in that monologue, I said, most black people are not violent or criminals. I said, and it's unfortunate that we're going to offend them when we turn and walk the other way. I said, but the problem is we don't know. We can't tell. And someone like Irina Zarutska, she sat down in front of a black man with her headphones in and wasn't paying attention because she was being a good liberal and said, I'm not uncomfortable by this. I'm progressive. Then she got stabbed in the neck. And I said, it's unfortunate that you would have to sit behind the black man to be safe. And if he's not violent or schizophrenic, he might be offended by that. I said, but I would rather offend him than die.
How many deranged white men have committed atrocious acts of murder in the last 10 years in America?
Proportionally, far fewer.
Far fewer. How many? Do you know how many?
You have a research team. You pull it up.
You're very big. You're obviously extremely exercised by that one story, which was horrific for the record, absolutely horrific, and should never have happened. The person who perpetrated that evil act had a string of previous offences and should have been picked up more, and it should have been amplified more. I completely concur with all of that. But I just suspect you have no idea how many white people have committed similar crimes, do you?
No, because I know it's far fewer from experience. Because it's like you said. Well, and hang on, and I would add to that. You know, Irina Zarutska wasn't the first one. That was also after Austin Metcalf was killed in Texas.
Sure.
After
how many times has it been perpetrated by white people?
Well, hang on, let me finish my point.
But white people don't do this. And my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is of course,
I never said white people don't do it.
deranged white people commit heinous acts. But you don't either know, you neither know nor care, or maybe both. Maybe you do know but don't care. You only seem to be focused on black people who commit crimes. And again, if you hadn't prefaced the whole debate about racism by openly conceding you are a racist, I could read other connotations into what you've been saying. But once you've said, I'm a racist, and then you only talk about black crime, I think people can watch this and they can say, yeah, he's a racist. And everything that he says about crime is driven through the prism of being a racist who judges people according to their skin color.
Well, it's funny because it's quite on the contrary. And I said this in a similar monologue. You know, the problem is not that I wake up and I walk down the street and I see someone that doesn't look like me and it makes me angry. The problem is there's a pattern of behavior, which we've all seen. Blacks in America have become narcissistic, and they become narcissistic because they've been told they're victims of racism, they're victims of slavery. They've been told, really, there's no accountability. If they're rude, if they're inconsiderate, if they're criminal, they are told that they have no agency for their actions. They're being told, if you act in this way, it's because the white man made you that way. It's because the system's rigged against you. And so we've been telling black people this for a generation, and now there's no rules. Now they go, and what we hate to see as decent people, not even as white people, but decent people, even black people too, what we hate to see is rudeness, obnoxiousness, inconsideration, criminality, violence. And that's that pattern of behavior that we see all over social media. On
so just to be clear, you don't like black people who play the victim and are rude. Is that your position?
I don't like that pattern of behavior.
Anyone narcissists?
I see where this is going.
Yeah, you're ahead of me.
Turn this around on
you're
me.
ahead of me, aren't you? Because when I said, what black friends have you got? You said,
I'm kind of black, aren't I?
No, not that. You said, I'm not saying you. I'm just saying your choice of black friend is Ye, who is arguably the #1 black victimhood narcissist in America. Do you understand the problem? So he's your friend. He's one of the very few black people you want to be associated with, but he's the epitome of what you just said you abhor about narcissistic black people.
I disagree. I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why. Because Ye, if you've ever met him in real life...
I have, yeah.
Okay, well, then you know. He's nothing but polite, considerate.
Actually, very rude to me the last 2 times I interviewed him. He's a supreme narcissist, and he's also...
You keep interrupting me. You're very rude. Are you black?
I apologize now to you.
I'm giving you a hard time, but I do want to finish my point. I do want to finish my point about Ye. He is a guy who, when I was with him, wanted to make sure that
these leftists are they literally spiritually embody what a black person is. It's crazy. They do embody what a black person is, bruh. It's so fucking funny. They embody their stupidness too.
Everybody was heard. Everybody felt included. He's actually a very soft-spoken guy, very polite, and by the way, not violent. When you look at all the rappers that are in the music game, many of them, especially from Chicago, drill rap, they're talking about killing people, shooting people, they gangbang. He notably, if you know about him, he got his start because he was a nerd. He wore a backpack and a polo, and he wasn't a gangbanger. He rapped about his feelings and girls and his dreams and his ambitions. So no, and by the way, he would tell me all the time, he doesn't even feel black. They make him feel not black because he doesn't do those things, because he's soft-spoken, because he's artistic, because he's a bit of a nerd or likes fashion. So I would disagree. He's actually not like that at all.
Okay. He's also a Hitler-loving anti-Semite. And we're going to take a little commercial break here, and we're going to come back talk about anti-Semitism and your views about Jewish people, and
That's
indeed what you have said about
right.
the same subject
That's
matter.
why I like W.
Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. Let's just turn to anti-Semitism. In your interview with Stephen Crowder last week, you answered emphatically that you don't hate all Jews. Is that correct? That's your position?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to play you this clip.
Well, I don't hate any Jews. Let me just amend that. I don't hate any Jews.
Okay. Let's play this clip.
The reason I've had it is because my opposition to world Jewry and Israel is rooted in absolute, uncontestable fact. We have the truth on our side. That's why we're winning. Because we are telling the truth about the historical antagonism between Jews and Europeans, between Jews and Christians. The theological, historical, racial, cultural, and political antagonisms between organized Jewry and the Christians, organized Jewry and Europeans. And the reason that we are winning that argument is because it's real, it's true. I can prove it, I can show you, I can name the names, I can show you the paper trail, the money. That is why we're winning. That is why all of this is raising the consciousness.
When you say you have this opposition to world Jewry, I mean, it's one thing to criticize, for example, the Israeli government over what's been doing in Gaza. I've done that myself. When you talk about world Jewry, I presume you're talking about the 15 million Jews in the world, and you are opposed to them. How does that square with your position that you don't hate any Jews?
Well, do you take issue with my use of the term world Jewry?
Well, what do you mean by that?
Or do you take issue with it? Do you have a problem with that?
Clarify what you mean by it.
Well, it's funny you bring that up. The gaslighting's crazy because I use that expression on my show all the time. I say organized Jewry, world Jewry. And do you know that for like 30 years, the World Jewish Congress has an annual keynote called the State of World Jewry? Barry Weiss has given it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. She gives the State of World Jewry.
What do you mean by it?
I mean, you have to talk about, there's a concept of Jewish peoplehood. It's the sense that they are part of a common nationality, a common tribe, a common people. And so where they reside in Israel, the United States or Europe or elsewhere, they see each other above or maybe on a different level alongside their nationality, their state, wherever they reside. If they're in Germany, France, the United States, they see themselves as part of a transnational nation, of an international nation. The Jews in America, the Jews in Israel, they identify as Israeli or American, but they also have something in common. They identify as part of a common nation, which I would say there's a world Jewish population. It's world Jewry. And world Jewry has representatives. There is such a thing as the World Jewish Congress, where they actually elect, it's democratic, all the local Jewish organizations elect representatives to represent proportionally the Jewish population in their area at the World Jewish Congress. And it's sort of like Davos. It's like the World Economic Forum, but it's exclusively for members of the Jewish nation that exists across the world. And so that's a real thing. And I didn't make that up, and that didn't come from 4chan. It's like I said in that clip. I read what they write. I read their books. I watch these speeches. I watch a speech from Barry Weiss. I pay very close attention. So that's what I mean by that. There is such a thing as it's a nation that exists across borders on a global scale. They're organized, and they have a national self-interest as that nation, as that tribe.
So if you don't hate any Jews, what do you like about them?
I like a lot of things about them. I think they're funny. I think they're smart. I think that they're pretty remarkable people. And as Christians, especially as Catholics, we say they're remarkable. And this has been adjudicated in Catholic doctrine for thousands of years. We say that they're a witness people. And so we actually, there's provisions inside of Catholic doctrine that says we need to give them special protections because they were a witness to Christ's passion. So, this is why you can't clip the show. You have to watch the whole thing. I say this repeatedly in interviews. I do think they're remarkable. By definition, they're exceptional people. It's just that there is a sort of natural opposition between them and Christians because of the theology. We believe that Christ is the Messiah. They don't. They have been a minority in Christian lands for thousands of years, and they have been pushed around and expelled, and they've been persecuted and segregated. And that's why there's a lot of paranoia. There's a lot of distrust. There's maybe some sense of chauvinism among Jewish people. So there is, like I said in that clip, there is an historical antagonism between these two peoples, between Christendom and Jewry, and that has always been the case in Europe. But I don't hate them, and I think I actually sort of understand them in a weird way. I think that because I've studied a lot of their politics, I think I really kind of know them in a way. It doesn't come from a place of hatred.
Do you have any Jewish friends?
I do. I have many, yes.
But that's weird because you said this.
Jews and Christians have never been friends, ever. Not since Jesus Christ fought with the Pharisees have we ever been friends. Not since Saul was leading the charge persecuting the Christians. Not since the Roman Empire, not since the Middle Ages. Never. We've never been friends. We've never been allies. We've always been set against each other, actually. And even here in the United States, it was communist Jews who were the architects of both communism and the civil rights laws that are dispossessing white Christians of their land and civilization.
The Jews and Christians...
Bruh. Yo, man, these guys just know how to twist stuff and make it seem like that's not exactly what he even meant. Nationally speaking, they've not been friends. Individually, that's a different thing. So yes, if nations, whatever, have not been friends. He's talking about nation-wise. Ancient Jews and Christians have not been friends for centuries. Bruh. Piers is just, bruh, this is just the most disingenuous interview I've ever seen in my life.
They've never been friends ever, except for you and your Jewish friends.
Yeah, so easy. As peoples, as nations.
Got it.
Not saying every individual Christian. And of course, there have been Christians and there have been Christian converts to Judaism, Jewish converts, Christian. You're not in your head, but you're asking this. I'm saying as peoples.
No, I'm a Catholic like you, and I have many Jewish friends. I'm just trying to compute what you're trying to say, which is Jews and Christians have never been friends.
I didn't know Piers Morgan was Catholic until this interview happened. I didn't know he was a Catholic. I could have sworn Piers is an atheist, but this is news to me. I didn't know he was a Catholic.
I'm like.
Also, tomorrow, well, I might post this early in the morning. I'm going to be reacting to the Piers Morgan expose tonight. I'm going to drop the video tomorrow. So we're going to react to Piers Morgan getting fried right now on the internet because he is a massive cuck. You're going to know why in a moment. Why is it that the internet is going after him? Because in this interview with Nick Fuentes, you're going to see exactly what he tried. He couldn't beat him on anything else, so he attacked him for one of the main things that Nick is always getting shit from his sexuality, where they're alleging he's gay, and the fact that he's still a virgin, which is insane to me, because if you're a Catholic yourself, Piers, then it's devout to wait till you're married to have sex with a woman. So, but yeah, I'll react to the Piers Morgan expose tomorrow, and I might put in another story or two. Well, you know what? I'm gonna react to Tyler Oliver's visit to I'll react to his visit to Minnesota. Get eyes on the ground to show you exactly how these people come here. They don't assimilate. To show you the Somali pirates. So I'll react to those two. Do that tomorrow.
Well, you have Jewish friends.
Since it's Friday. And I don't think there's any other news right now coming up. Yeah, I'll probably wait to cover the Candace Owens stuff on Monday. Should I cover the... Yeah, I'll probably cover the Afghan shooter on Saturday. I'll say that for Saturday.
I have Jewish friends. We're both Catholics. Therefore, we're Christians. So it doesn't really quite add up.
Well, like I said, as peoples, there has been an historical antagonism as peoples. And you could even say the same about blacks in the United States. Of course, there were black and white people that were friendly with each other, but in many ways, they were set against each other as groups. And I think that's easy enough to understand.
The reason that many people think you're anti-Semitic is that you have regularly downplayed the Holocaust, and in particular, the number of Jewish people who were murdered by the Nazis. It's been said that you believe no more than several 100,000 have been killed. And I want to play you this clip.
People talk about, well, what about the gas chambers? Well, to the extent that that's real, I find that hard to believe, but to the extent that's real, there have been atrocities committed and genocides committed in all times and all places. Let's acknowledge why Hitler casts the long shadow. Because that confers a political benefit upon Jews. That's why.
It doesn't really sound correct to me. Wait a second. It takes 1 hour to cook a batch of cookies, and you have 15 ovens, probably in 4 different kitchens, right? Doing 24 hours a day, every day for 5 years. How long would it take you to make 6 million? I don't know. It certainly wouldn't be 5 years, right? The math doesn't seem to add up there.
You think that's funny?
It's funny. It's amusing what you're doing because, that one was a joke. But do you want to talk seriously about the Holocaust?
Yeah, I do, actually. I do, because I just find it extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon? Is it too soon to make jokes?
How many people do you think died in the Holocaust? How many Jewish people?
I don't know. I'm thinking maybe 7 million. What's the number? 6 million, something like that?
So
8 million?
You concede that 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust?
Possibly more. Possibly, we're discovering all the time. So it could maybe even be more than that.
So why have you doubted the numbers in the past?
I'll tell you why. I really think that every death is a tragedy, however many Jewish people died in the Holocaust. And I'm not a World War II historian, so I'm actually open to believing the official narrative, and I've read some of the conspiracy theories. And to tell you the truth, it's a rigorous debate. But what's interesting about this is in many countries, it's not even legal to talk about it. And that's really where my interest in the Holocaust begins and sort of ends, to tell you the truth, is that if you wanted to question the number, you would be put in jail in about, 17 or 18 European countries. And I think that's really the more interesting conversation, which is that this is almost like a religious dogma in the West. No other genocide, no other atrocity is treated like this. Could you imagine if in the United States they said the number of Palestinians killed in Gaza is 100,000, and if you don't say that, you're going to jail, you're banned on X, you can't have a job? That's the part that's totally insane. And a lot of people, they can't even make up their minds. I think it's actually done a disservice. If your goal, and I'm not saying you as Piers Morgan, but if your goal, if you're an advocate for awareness about this, if your goal is to convince everybody that this is the way the Holocaust happened, I think the last thing you'd want to do is say that everyone that disagrees is in jail and is banned and you're not allowed to say it. So there's really been no open debate about the subject since the scholarship started to be produced about 60 years ago.
But there is no debate to be had about the number of people who were murdered. Even the Nazis in the trials after the war confirmed the numbers. The amount of documentation that was recovered, notwithstanding the attempts by the Nazis to destroy it, the amount of documentation that was saved and preserved and used for trials and for historical record is unprecedented in the history of mass slaughter of human beings. So we have a very clear idea of how many people were gassed to death in the gas chambers. We have a very clear idea of how many were starved to death, were kept in ghettos, died of disease, of forced labor, of death marches. We know how many Jews were slaughtered. It's at least 6 million. What's interesting to me is that you appear to now concede that, which may be news to a lot of your regular viewers who have constantly heard you quibble with the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust. And for the record, just to confirm what I think you told me, you do now accept that at least 6 million Jews were killed in the Holocaust.
Well, no, I said it could even be higher than
well,
that.
It could be higher. That is true.
It's at least.
But
I think you're right, it is at least. Oh, it's at least 6 million. But it could be 100 times more than that.
Okay, the people are going to be...
But let me respond to the rest of your question.
Sure.
What you're saying, I understand where you're coming from when you say it has been documented and there are confessions and so on. Let that speak for itself. But you don't see, your show is called Piers Morgan Uncensored.
Yeah. But
the United Kingdom is censored and Europe is censored. And if you talk about these things, you will be put in jail in many countries. And I think that's where a lot of people start to say, well, if the truth is so clear and if there's such overwhelming evidence, why do you need to throw people in jail for disagreeing? And you yourself said, well, there is no debate. I think everything is debatable. I think everything at least should be debated. And if the evidence is very one-sided, let the evidence speak. Don't throw people in jail. So do you think that Holocaust denial laws should be overturned?
I don't particularly agree with Holocaust denial laws. I don't think people should be in prison.
Okay.
Well, because I have a blanket view now, which has evolved slightly actually over the years, that I have a blanket view that speech should not be criminalized. Right? People should be allowed to say what they want to say, and they should be then made accountable for what they say. If you have an employer, they can make a view about whether you are the right kind of person they want for their employment, as they would make a decision about anything else you do in life. So I actually believe that speech should never be criminalized, is my personal view. I understand why in places like Germany, they have strong laws about it because they want to move on from what they believe was the most shameful moment in their history. I understand that. Do I want that in my country? No. Am I appalled by what has been going on with free speech in the United Kingdom in the last 2 or 3 years? Absolutely. It is ridiculous that people have been frog marched to prison cells for stuff they put on social media. Right? So yeah, I do. I think what is more interesting to me about our exchange is I was not expecting you to go the opposite way. I was not expecting you to be so emphatic that at least 6 million Jews died in the Holocaust. And there'll be people watching this who I think will be very surprised by that, because you have built a reputation for being, if not a Holocaust denier, then somebody constantly questioning in a downward way the number of Jews who were murdered. That doesn't appear to be what your position is now.
No, and here's what I would like to see for my entire career. When I started my show, it started with a good faith inquiry where I was questioning a lot of these narratives and I said, what is the answer on the other side? But what I found is that the answer was criminalized. So when you would talk about anything regarding Jews, Israel, the Holocaust, you could be in favor of the official narrative on those things. If you went against, you were banned, censored, and in some countries jailed. And so I actually haven't made up my mind on that because that's not really a matter of interest to me. And there's a lot of analysis and scholarship on both sides of the issue. And I've read both sides of the issue. And honestly, unfortunately, it's hard to judge because there has never been a debate on it. And there's never been a debate because of the stigma, because of the censorship. And I think that leads a lot of people to say, well, what do they have to hide? Because you can say on your show, well, I'm personally against Holocaust denial laws, yet they still persist and the social consequences still persist. And I think that that is the anomaly. And people have to wonder, okay, why is it that way? And what I said in that clip is the reason the Holocaust casts a long shadow is because it confers a political benefit upon organized Jewry. That is what they always fall back on. They cannot be criticized. They cannot be named. They cannot be talked about, lest there be another Holocaust. And no other tragedy is treated that way. And no other ethnic group has a get out of jail free card. Just play that. Anti-Semitism and Holocaust. You can do whatever you want and defend all your actions. That's the part that people are getting upset with. That's the problem.
I don't know any right-minded person who believes that Jewish people weaponized the Holocaust for their own personal get out of jail free or whatever you called it.
You don't know anyone that does that?
I'm sure there are some people that do that, but it's such a ridiculous generalization. The truth is that most Jewish people have lost relatives in the Holocaust. In fact, I want to play you two clips. One is where you talk about Adolf Hitler.
Hitler was a pedophile and kind of a pagan. It's like, well, he was also really fucking cool. So, time to grow up. We're not children anymore. Am I right? Am I right? Am I right, boys? Am I right? Let's go. He was also really fucking cool.
You regret saying that?
saying a fact. No, that's absolutely true.
You think Hitler was very fucking cool?
Aesthetically,
yes, I do.
And I'm
tired of pretending he's not.
Well,
to be honest,
this is the problem. You see, it's a bit like when you just say I'm a racist. You're a racist who thinks Hitler's cool, but you're not anti-Semitic. If you're a Jewish person watching this, what are they thinking? I'll tell you what they're thinking. Because I've got a friend of mine called Danny Finkelstein, who, when he heard I was interviewing you, he's a Times journalist in the UK, very eminent journalist here, and author, who wrote a book about his own family's experiences at the hands of Hitler and Stalin, because you also told Tucker Carlson that you admire Stalin. But let's just take what Danny said here.
Hi Piers, it's Danny Finkelstein here. As you're interviewing Nick Fuentes, you might try suggesting to him that he reads my book, Hitler, Stalin, Mum and Dad. It's called Two Roads Home in the United States. Since he says he's on Team Hitler, you might like to ask him about the fact that Hitler arrested my mum, tried to starve my mum to death, did starve my grandmother to death, sent my great aunt to the gas chamber, my great uncle, my cousin. My grandmother on my father's side ended up being one out of 7 children, the only one that survived the war. So you might ask him whether he wouldn't rather be on Team Mum rather than Team Hitler. And as for celebrating Stalin's birthday, well, Stalin took my father, sent him to a state collective farm, sent my grandmother and to a state collective farm, sent my grandfather to the Gulag. You might try asking why he doesn't celebrate Dad's birthday rather than Stalin's. It may all be a big joke to him, but he complains that he was 18 when someone tried to cancel him. Well, Stalin and Hitler arrested my mum and my dad when they were 10 years old. So perhaps he might like to reconsider his joke.
See, that's the...
Yeah. He said he don't know. Didn't Piers say earlier, I don't know anyone who weaponizes the Holocaust against anyone? And then he proceeds to play a video of a guy doing the exact thing. Weaponizing the Holocaust against Nick. Wow. So he proceeds to even just verify the truth that Jews do that. This is kind of a self-own on Piers Morgan. He owned himself in this regard. Like, you do know somebody. And he just proved it. Wow. That's crazy.
The reality of your jokes, although I haven't ascertained yet whether you are joking when you say that Hitler was very fucking cool. Are you joking, or do you actually think he was very fucking cool? The most genocidal monster of the last 150 years?
Yeah, the thing is, my generation, we're just done with the pearl clutching. You know,
you might be, but then your generation hasn't gone through what Danny Finkelstein's family went through. So maybe the pearl clutching has a way to go for families whose family members.
Oh my God! Yeah, we got all that. me mum. Like I don't even know who this person is. Why is this person talking to me? This old British guy is saying me mum got killed by Hitler.
Because he doesn't find it funny when you say Hitler's very fucking cool.
I don't care. I don't care.
You don't care. That's fine. You don't have to care. But he does care.
Does that guy care about America? Does that guy care about me and my country and my family? No.
He cares what you, a prominent conservative in America, has to say about Adolf Hitler. Now, what do you mean by Hitler is very fucking cool? Because I think he's very fucking a monster.
Okay. That's a clip. I think he's very fucking a monster. Do you hear yourself?
Yeah,
can we all grow up?
I do.
Can we all grow
up? He murdered 12 million people. He murdered 12 million people. What is very fucking cool about that? Tell me.
The edits, it's just cool. The uniforms, the parades, it's cool as a guy. You look at World War II, and it's fascinating, and it's interesting, and it's compelling, and it's cool. And we're just tired of saying these kinds of things. We want to talk like real people and give our honest opinions. And then we literally get an old Jewish guy from England who's going to say, "Oh, that's very funny, mate. Me mum." And it's like, shut up. Like, no one is in favor of genocide. So let's just get that out of the way. We're not in favor of a Holocaust or genocide.
Do you think if half your family
years ago,
you think if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people, who targeted people because they were disabled or Jewish or Romani Gypsy or whatever it may be, and that he systematically destroyed people, incinerated them in gas chambers? Do you think that you would find it very fucking cool if your family had been through that? Or do you think you would find it very fucking disgusting? And perhaps moderate the number of times you laugh about it, or want to joke about it, or want to abuse someone like Danny Finkelstein, who's written incredibly powerful books about what happened to his extended family at the hands of the Nazis and your other hero, Stalin. See, my point to you, Nick Fuentes, is that in parts of this interview, you try to come across as moderate, but every now and again, the mask slips, and it's slipped again here with what you say about Hitler. There's nothing very fucking cool about Hitler. We know that from history now. We know what he did. You've already conceded that he murdered at least 6 million Jews. So when you say he's very fucking cool, Jewish people watch this and go, this guy's disgusting. Why would he say this about someone who perpetrated such an evil? And what's the real answer? Why do you? Is it just for clicks? Is it for money? Is it just for fun? For shits and giggles? What is it? What motivates you to say something like Hitler was very fucking cool?
It's for this. It's for all of this. And the lack of self-awareness is amazing. You're a boomer. You're a 60-year-old boomer. And we spent maybe 3 minutes on you saying, he's a really fucking monster. He incinerated people. And I'm sitting here saying it's not that serious. It's not that deep. And
not that
what
serious.
I'm getting at,
not that serious.
Do you want to say more about he's a monster?
You're not a kid yourself anymore. You're not a teenager.
I know.
Right? You're nearly 30, to be clear.
Yeah,
okay? You're a fully formed adult who has a brain. right? And at some stage, that brain has taken you off these
Is this
rabbit
an
holes.
interview or is this a lecture? Can I respond to what you're saying?
I want you to explain why you think it's fine to say how fucking cool Hitler is and to dismiss the very powerful 90 seconds from a British journalist who lost a lot of family members to the Nazis in such a callous, dismissive manner.
I don't think it's powerful. I think we've been hearing that our entire lives. Okay, the Schindler's List. Let's just be honest. The propaganda is over the top. We have been in America.
What about the Schindler's List? Tell me about the Schindler's List. Tell me about the Schindler's List.
I'll tell you about it. We have been browbeaten as a people, as Americans, as Westerners, for our entire lives. And you know what this has done? It has taken away any sense of pride, any sense of love for our own civilization. We have been made the villain in our own story. We have been made because, well, let's just be clear. It doesn't begin and end with Hitler is a monster. This has been the political narrative, which is why we've thrown open the borders. This is a political narrative, which is why we can't be a conservative society as a whole anymore. Why we can't be proud of Europeans. Why we can't be proud of being Christian. Because they've told us if you're too white and too proud and too Christian, it's going to lead to a Holocaust. And so my generation, our entire lives. Wait. No, it's true. And that's why people like me. That's why I'm popular, because this is bullshit.
Honestly,
yeah, it's a crock of shit. You don't want to hear anymore about mom and me dad.
No, listen. What you just said is a crock of shit. And you know
true.
it.
It's called the open society.
In your gut, you know it is. You weaponize this stuff. You weaponize this stuff for money, but you know when you say something like what you just said.
I'm banned from banking and credit cards. You know who you're talking to? I do it for money. How much money you make? Your company's worth $100 million. Your company's worth $100 million. I was banned from Bank of America. I'm banned from processing credit cards.
And you shouldn't have been.
But I am. So don't tell me I'm doing it for money.
Well, ask me my opinion about that. I'll tell you shouldn't have been. Right? I don't agree with that. What happened?
Then don't say I'm doing it for money, because you know that full well, and you say it's a
How much money? How much money are you?
If I wanted to be a grifter, I'd be like you.
How much money are you making?
I'm making a lot of money now. Yeah. Now that I'm the #1 live streamer in America, because people agree with me more than they agree with you. We're tired of hearing about slavery and the Holocaust and Jim Crow. We're done hearing about that. You guys
I'm not done hearing about that.
Okay, well, your generation's on the way out, and Generation Z is coming up, and we're finished with that. We're ready to take our country back.
I've got three sons. I've got 3 sons, and they don't share your views about slavery and about the Holocaust. Boys. They can have decency and compassion and humanity about some of the worst things that have happened in the last 150 years or more. They can do that. And they can.
Reminder, we're back into the Piers Morgan expose. It's going to drop tomorrow. So, yeah, I can see why he's raising his boys. I hope he's not raising his boys to be like him and his wife right now, because it's not looking good for big old Piers right there. This guy's had like multiple debates. He has had multiple debates with Andrew Tate. It's just like Andrew Tate's won in the end. He has the last laugh on Piers Morgan.
Also have concerned views about issues like immigration and other issues. The two things are not mutually incompatible. You can have different views about different things. It's your lack of humanity and compassion for people about things like the Holocaust, about slavery. It's that people find so contemptible. And I don't understand why you need to do that. Again, I just ask you, is your motivation financial? Is your motivation for fun? What is the motivation for saying these outlandish things, which you don't need to say, and which I suspect, I don't know, I suspect a lot of it is performative. So what is the motivation?
I'm an iconoclast. The Holocaust is not my religion, and it is treated like a religion. It is treated like a religion with dogma, with blasphemy laws, and that secular religion says, and you say that's a crock of shit. It's intentional. It's called The Open Society by Karl Popper. It's by these architects of the liberal order after World War II. They got together and they said, how can we make sure that Hitler never happens? How can we make sure that totalitarianism never happens again? And they came up with the consensus, which is that we need to take down nations, religions, fathers, the authoritarian personality. We need to be empathetic and altruistic. We need to be diverse and pluralistic. And that experiment isn't working. And I'll tell you the truth right now, and you can laugh at this, you can scoff at this. Our people are being genocided in our country. 50% of the live births in the United Kingdom and in the United States are non-white. In 100 years, my ancestors, your kids who are so empathetic and compassionate, they're going to be a minority. They're going to be a minority in maybe a Muslim country, an Indian country, an Hispanic country. And these Jewish people that are 100 years old talking about my grandparents and the Holocaust, they don't care about that. Actually, they like to see it. At the SPLC, they're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
Gaza, it's against
How many Christians are there in the world?
1 point some billion.
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude is why you're losing. When you say
who am I losing to?
White people,
who am I losing to?
White people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it, mass migration. You're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the arrow pointing? Where are we going to be in 50 years? In 50 years, there might be in Israel. In 50 years, there isn't going to be a white person.
You don't believe people should get married, right?
I think people should get married. I'm a Christian.
But you're basically anti-marriage, really. You've talked about this. You've talked about.
Are we done talking about white genocide?
Well, I'm coming to the same part because you seem very resistant to the idea of marriage. You've never got married. You've talked very scathingly about henpecked husbands. Just take a look.
That's true. Guys get to a certain age and they're like, you know what? Women suck. Like, they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Like, you're fat, you're chubby, you're not as hot as you think you are. You fucking talk too much. You're a bitch.
So we'll obviously get to the brazen misogyny part of that a little later. But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on with white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly, so they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
I tell my followers to get married all the time. I tell them that it's best for everybody to get married. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex. I think that's the only licit way as a Catholic is
Why don't you get
have
married?
sex is within marriage.
Why don't you get married?
I'll get married later. It's been difficult for me because people are shooting at me at my house. I don't know that I don't want to have kids and a wife. You know, my wife would be screaming about that. Me, you know, I have to be able to take risks and be able to say these things. It's difficult to bring a family into a life that's like that. But for my followers, I tell them to get married. But what's happening with women?
You literally just told your followers, hang on, in that clip, you literally told followers, women, they get old, they get fat, they get ugly, they get very annoying. So where's the incentive to get married to women? There isn't one. You're actively telling them
you're extrapolating a lot.
Just quoting you back yourself again.
No, but you're extrapolating and saying, well, you say women are annoying, so therefore, what's the incentive? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. We can get them to lose weight. We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land. But it's going to be.
Do you think this view of women may be why none of them want to go near you?
Oh, you should see my DMs. It is quite the opposite. They're called the Groy-bets, and I'm actually batting them away. Granted, not all of them are attractive. Some of them are attractive.
Are you actually? Just to clear up one of the many theories about you. I have no idea what the answer is, and you haven't got to answer. But are you actually attracted to women?
I am attracted to women.
You're not gay?
No. But I will say that women are very difficult to be around. Okay. So there's that.
And do you think they should have the right to vote?
Fuck no.
I do not. No, absolutely not.
No. They should stay at home?
Yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So basically, you're just a misogynist old dinosaur, aren't you? For a young guy. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm the boomer. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you? Aren't you, Nick Fuentes? All women. I am. All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat. Says the guy. Have you ever had sex?
No, absolutely not.
Wow. Says the guy who's never got laid.
That's the thing, though. You boomers, it's all free love.
Yeah. You got laid, Piers Morgan. Don't worry. Like I said, stay tuned tomorrow. Reacting to the Piers Morgan expose. Don't miss it. Since he wants to attack, hey, listen, it's fine. You can attack Nick with that, whatever. But let's look into your sex life, Piers Morgan. Let's look into your life with your wife. There's a lot to look into that, buddy. Trust me. You're trying to be the dominant masculine leader for your boys. Those boys gonna turn out to be cooks right now.
You never got laid?
Yeah, we are going back to the Stone Age. You're absolutely right. This, you know, you're talking about empathy and your kids are empathetic and they would never laugh at a joke about the Holocaust and you're a misogynist. You're a simp yourself. You're totally henpecked. That's the problem. So yeah, we are going back
to another clip of yours about women.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean
true.
That sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them.
So true.
But also they have to pretend. But part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
You think women want to be raped, do you?
That's what the studies show, Piers. That is what these statistics
that's what you believe,
They have fantasies. They have fantasies about it. I don't think that they want to actually get raped. But there's a study out there. Get ready for this. It says 62% of women have rape fantasies. And if you read anything that they're reading, if you watch what they're watching, what do you think 50 Shades of Grey is about? What do you think Twilight is about? I mean, that's just true.
You think women want to have the shit beaten out of them, as you said?
Yes.
Yeah, and it's very disturbing, but it's true.
Do you think your views on women might change if you actually ever had a relationship with one or had sex and actually had a proper relationship? I mean, people say the reason you're so angry about women is you're basically an incel.
Well, I'm not angry about it.
You sound very angry. You sound very, very angry about women. They get
passionate. It's an issue.
You're passionate. You're sounding very bitter about women, as if women have done a terrible disservice to you. But when you don't have relationships, you don't have sex, when are they doing these terrible things to you that's made you so hateful towards women? I'm really curious.
Was that? I don't think that was a hateful clip. I think I was laughing. I said they want men to beat the shit out of them, and that's just true. I mean, when you look at the state of modern women, all they do is lay in their bed, doom scroll. They're chilling out. They're getting a little fat. It is what it is. I don't know what the average weight is, but they're getting a little heavy. And any guy that is playing the field these days will tell you that. I mean, and I know a lot of the Chads. I am an incel. I'm friends with a lot of Chads like Bradley Martin, Clavicular. They agree with me. You know, there's sort of like this alliance between the guys that don't have sex and the guys that get the most sex. We know what women are about. It's the guys in the middle. Guys like you in the middle. It's the beta male orbiters that say, she's amazing, you're a misogynistic pig. Because I don't know what that is. I guess
let me explain to you what I think it is. I think when a 27-year-old guy who's never got laid never had a meaningful relationship with a woman. Says that women shouldn't be allowed to vote. They should stay at home. That all they do is fantasize about being raped and being beaten up. That's what they want. That they're annoying. That they get fat. That they get ugly. That's a misogynist. Now, you may not understand it because your knowledge of women is so incredibly tiny. But actually, you are the embodiment of a misogynist. It couldn't be clearer.
Bruh.
And if I was, in a way, you have the deep-rooted misogyny of some of the actual boomers I know. Yeah, here you are.
Bruh, I'm telling you, this is coming from a man who's getting cucked right now by his wife. I really don't want to talk about that right now. I want to wait till I watch the expose because it's really good. But just like, bro, this is coming from a man who's getting cucked by his wife. You cannot take Piers Morgan serious when it comes to talking about women. He's being cucked by his wife right now.
27 years old. And most of the current studies show that a lot of men are really disenfranchised from society, no longer have physical relationships with women if they've ever had them, never associate with women, and build up instinctively misogynist views about women. And I fear you're in that position. You're just a bit of a lonely guy who wants to get laid and can't for whatever reason. And it's made you bitter about women. And I don't know where that's come from, but it's fascinating.
That's great.
No, see, here's the thing. First of all, you're very caught up in the labels. It's always, you're a racist, you're a misogynist.
You said you were a racist.
To me. Oh, hang on, can I respond?
You gave yourself the label.
What is this?
You said, I am a racist. I didn't give you the label.
Okay.
You said, Fuentes, I am a racist.
Calm down.
Did you or didn't you?
It's okay.
Did you?
No, he needs to get
okay, but
I didn't give you the label. You did.
Why are you yelling at me?
Because you're trying to confirm something that didn't happen. You said, I gave you the label of being a racist. No, you did. You said, I'm a racist. You gave yourself a label.
You're going to have to tone it down a little, all right? You're going to have to bring it down a notch and relax. This is just an interview, okay? Please calm down. All I said is you're hung up. I didn't say you gave me that. Maybe I did. But here's what I mean. What I mean is you're just hung up on saying, I'm proving you're a misogynist. Okay, you're a racist. Okay, you denied the Holocaust. And I'm not about the labels, man.
I'm just past that. As I said to you, look, Nick, I just wanted to go over the stuff that everyone uses out there about you and get you to respond. And we are getting, I think, a long way in this interview. Right? Okay. You didn't deny the Holocaust. You accepted there's been a Holocaust of at least 6 million Jews.
I'm a maximalist.
That is significant. You did admit you're a racist, and you have spelled out a thought process about women, which is the purest definition of misogyny that I've ever seen. And you said you're not gay. So we're getting somewhere.
Yeah. Well, look, and I own the labels, okay? But I just don't care that much about that.
That's fine.
I feel like this is like a weird...
I'm not saying you have to care, Nick. You don't have to care about any of it. I promise you. Right, that's not why I got you on the show. I wanted to give you a fair crack, which I think I have. We've gone over a lot of stuff. We've got a bit more to go on. I genuinely don't think I've ambushed you with anything you couldn't have been expecting.
No.
I don't think I've been overtly hostile. In fact, when you've asked me to calm down, I've calmed down. I don't want to have a hostile, angry, shouty match with you. I simply want you to spell out exactly what you've meant about all these things, and people can then be the judge of them. So let's take another break, and we'll come back and talk about Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and others. Okay, back with Nick Fuentes. You began your show in 2017, the same year as Trump was inaugurated for his first term in office. You supported him at that time, but you've grown increasingly disillusioned, I think it'd be fair to say. Let's play a recent clip from you about Trump.
We played this game in the first term. We're 10 years in. And you still have these people, I hate to say it, but they're just like in denial. And they're like, okay, everybody, let's all go on Twitter and let's tell Trump, don't screw over your voters. Okay, hey, Trump, don't hire John Ratcliffe in the CIA. Like, what are we doing? We lost. It's over. The time to make demands was during the election when he needed the votes. He's a lame duck president. He doesn't need anything from us. He's not even on Twitter. He's on Truth Social. So what are you talking about? We're going to all rally and tell him, don't hire yet another neocon?
Now, over the weekend, you posted this on X. You said performative cruelty is the perfect phrase to characterize the Trump admin and the mood of the MAGA movement. In order to compensate for his compromises and failures, Trump has to fall back on mean-spiritedness to appeal to the basest instincts of his followers. It's really sad. I mean, do you think you're the best person, Nick Fuentes, to lecture people about performative cruelty?
Why? Are you accusing me of being cruel? Is that what that is?
Yeah.
How am I cruel?
You're cruel about black people. You're cruel about women. I mean, you're cruel about a lot of people. And you're very performative.
Okay. I don't think I'm performative. If anything, everyone else is performative. I'm authentic. Whatever you want to say about me, it's real. It's from the gut. But yes, I do think it's performative. And what I mean by that is, when they're doing the deportations, they know the deportations are not where the base wants them to be. They deported, the figures are disputed, but from my data, it's 300,000 in the year, which is not a massive deportation. They know the base is unhappy with that. So what do? The deportations that they are carrying out, they do a big spectacle and they arrest everybody and they film it and they put a hype at it. And there's a meanness in there. They played that song. Yeah. From Sabrina Carpenter or something, and they make it a joke. They make it glib, and they do that because they're not delivering on the promise. So they compensate by doing it meaner, edgier, more mean-spirited, so that the base will overlook the fact that it's not happening. And I think that's by definition performative cruelty. You can call me a hypocrite, but it's definitely true about what they're doing in the administration.
You went to see Trump at Mar-a-Lago with Ye for dinner. What was that like?
it was very interesting. They're my two heroes. Ye is my hero. Trump is my hero. Even though he's very disappointing, I still have a personal hero of mine. And he's a remarkable person. It was a great conversation. We got along pretty well. He liked me. I liked him. It was a love fest.
I mean, he got attacked afterwards for supping with the white supremacist devil. I mean, do you accept you are a white supremacist?
No, absolutely not.
You don't think white people are superior to black people?
No, I'm a Christian, so I believe everybody is equal before God.
Including women?
Yes.
So you give women equal rights, then?
No.
Great. No. Great. Okay, so you just talked a little bullshit, didn't you?
What?
No. Why are you like mad about this? No.
You want women to be treated equally before God, but you don't want to give them equal rights.
Yeah, because women and men are different. Do you believe there are two genders?
It's your view.
Do you think there's two genders?
I do think there are two genders, yes.
Okay, and so you mean there's distinction. There are two distinct genders.
I think we should all have the same rights.
Well, if they're meaningfully distinct, biologically distinct, and they have different
It's always
social
guys
and
like
biological
Piers
roles, I think it would follow that we would treat them a little bit differently in the law.
Do you think the Catholic Church's teachings reflect that?
Always this,
I do. Yeah, there's no female priests.
Quick. Always guys that are like in Piers' shoes that are like the social justice for women. It's always the guys that put on the white cape that look like Piers Morgan. You ever notice that? Make a lot of money, not too well articulative with women, but the money compensates for that problem, which is not a good thing to have. You should actually want to know how to talk to women, because then you don't want to get left like a fool like Piers Morgan. I just noticed that coming from Piers Morgan.
Have you ever seen that?
Did you think that the Catholic Church thinks all women should be deprived of the vote?
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
No, they don't.
I think they do, yeah.
Sure.
You think the Catholic Church position is women shouldn't be allowed to vote?
I think so, yeah, but I'm not positive.
No, it's bullshit.
Oh, it should be.
It should be. So if you were Pope, that's what you do. You could be Pope because you're celibate.
That's true. And I'm also from Chicago, like the Pope. But look, I mean, women, it says in the Bible that women have no authority over men, and they can't teach men, and that's why there's no female priests.
There's a lot of things in the Bible. I mean, do you take every word of the Bible as sacrosanct?
That's crazy.
Well, yeah, it's inspired scripture.
That's all of it is
now.
All of it is
A
sacrosanct.
theological debate. Well, it is Catholic doctrine that women should not lead and teach. I mean, you're not interacting with what I'm saying. Why can't women be priests?
They should be.
Okay, well, you're not Catholic. That's not a Catholic
I am a
position.
Catholic. I just many things I disagree with the Catholic Church.
That's crazy.
Well, that kind of is contrary, because the whole basis of being Catholic is accepting. Yes, it's accepting the authority of the pontiff.
You can be a member of a religion and disagree with parts of that religion. Perfectly reasonable.
That's crazy.
You could be, well, yeah, I mean, you could say
Unless you're an
that's
extremist.
true.
If you're an extremist, you can't. Obviously, you never deviate.
That's just not rigorous.
You never
That's just
deviate if you're
sloppy.
an extremist. But even the Constitution's been amended, was it 27 times? We were talking about this sacrosanct document. It's been amended 27 times.
Goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my, this is not rigorous intellectually. This is very
Just a statement of
tabloid
fact.
theology. Okay, but it's fine. Where were we? We're talking about Trump, and somehow we got into white knighting for women's rights.
Well, I think women should have the same rights as you and I. You don't. That's fine.
Put on the pink hat, bro. Put on the pink hat. We're waiting.
What's the pink hat for?
Yeah. For the march, for the women's march. Are we going to see you at the women's march, protesting for women's rights and all that?
I think women should have equal rights to men. Period.
You carry tampons in case your female friends get a period or something? Like, it's crazy.
I'd have no problem giving a female friend a tampon, would you? I don't suppose you've ever seen a tampon, have you?
Gross. Absolutely not.
You think tampons are gross?
Yeah, they're really? Period blood. Yeah, it's kind of gross.
Wow.
Are you into that? You like that? You got a lot of tampons?
I don't think you've ever seen it, have you?
I've seen them. I've seen them before.
You've been that close to a woman? Really?
No, I've seen them. Look, I used to live with women, so I've seen them around the house.
I bet you've seen videos, haven't you?
What? What are we doing here, Piers?
I'm not sure.
You really hate that.
I'm not sure.
You're more impressed that I'm a misogynist than you are about anything. It's
not
very
really.
revealing.
I'm actually more exercised about your blatant, self-admitted racist.
Yo, I swear, Piers does hate misogynists, bro, because like he hates what he can't be. Let's be real. Piers Morgan hates what he can't be. If he was even half the man that, say, Andrew Tate, the one that he pretty much like, I would go on a scale and say he hates Andrew Tate probably more than Nick, even though I consider Piers and Andrew Tate unofficial friends in a way. He just hates Andrew Tate for being a misogynist, quote unquote. But then you see Piers' sex life. I get it. He hates him because he just can't be him. That's the problem why he hates him. Not because he hates him because it's Andrew Tate. No, he hates him because he can't be him. That's funny.
And I'm about anything. But the misogyny runs a close second. Let me ask you about Tucker Carlson, because you had a long sit down with Tucker Carlson, in which he was, oddly, I like Tucker, we got on well, I was with him last week in London, but he gave me a harder time than he gives you. And then afterwards, he was more critical. And then you said this about Tucker.
He's a handler. He handles people. That's what he does. He's a fucking liar and a handler. He goes around telling people, I don't know anything. I don't know. Oh, I know nothing. I don't even have a phone. I am just a clueless tourist. I just traveled to all these countries and, I don't trust him. And I don't care, maybe that alienates me from people in the conservative movement. I don't care. I'm not going to be a part of it. I'm not going to be a party to whatever that is. Whatever that CIA bullshit is, I'm not going to be a part of it. So,
Now that I've heard enough from Tucker and I've heard enough from other people and I've seen enough, this guy's not who he says he is, not an ally. Stay the fuck away from me. You're weird, dude. You're weird.
See, what would have been great is if you said that to him when you were sitting opposite him.
Well, when I was sitting opposite him at the dinner and in the interview, he was nothing but nice. He was very nice to me and very cordial, and he didn't call me an anti-Semite, and he didn't even press me on it at all. And I thought he would, and I almost wanted him to. He was nothing but nice, and we had a great time. We had a really great dinner, really great interview, and I felt really good about it. And the next week on my show, I said, he really surprised me. He's great. And then every interview he's done since, all he does is call me an anti-Semite. He goes, well, I hate his anti-Semitism, and I wonder why people like him. And so I just think that's two-faced. So after that experience, it kind of turned me off. I didn't like that, but he's going to do what he's going to do. He's still a nice guy, but I think he's two-faced.
What about Candace Owens? You had a sit down with her. She called you out on a few of your more incendiary comments. You've been attacking her quite virulently recently. What's going on there?
Well, it's me and her. We're so complicated. We're on and off. It's very passionate on both sides. I think there's this intense desire to be friends, but a frustration where we disagree with each other. There's a rivalry. But I thought we were going to have a friendly conversation, and then she kind of did the same thing. We're going to go on a show during the war with Iran. We're literally in the middle of a war. And she texted me the day before the United States bombed Fort O. And she said, would you like to come on my show? I said, absolutely. I said, is this going to be about Iran? She goes, I don't do setups. I said, yeah, let's do it. I come on the show, and then she's got this weird hostile demeanor. She's doing the clip thing. Then she puts it behind a paywall. It was ridiculous. So that really was not nice. And then I think this whole Charlie Kirk thing, I think she's gone insane. I think she's absolutely lost her mind.
Yeah.
So I feel sorry for her husband.
What did you feel when Charlie Kirk was assassinated? Where were you when you heard about it?
I was at my house, and a friend of mine who was actually at the event texted me. I said, Charlie got shot. I said, who? He said, Charlie Kirk. I said, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And honestly, it was devastating. I didn't like Charlie Kirk at all, and we had an intense rivalry, and he hated me. But honest to God, I was devastated. I was emotionally affected by it. I didn't even do a show that night because I was beside myself. So it was rough. I mean, it was hard to watch.
When you say you were beside yourself, I mean, you hated him.
I don't hate anybody. I didn't hate him, but I really didn't like him. I intensely disliked him, and
he called you vermin, didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he hated me also.
But you were still beside yourself when you heard what happened to him.
I was. I thought it was disgusting what was done to him, and it was tragic, and it was horrifying.
Do you fear an attack like that on yourself if you up your own security because of this? Because your profile's got exponentially higher since what happened to Charlie Kirk.
I have increased my security, and but something similar like that happened to me. Someone came to my house with a gun about a year ago, almost exactly, trying to kill me, and he was shot and killed in my alleyway. So I've had increased security for a while. It's a bad time out there, and I do believe it was a left-wing person that killed him. I think it was a left-wing person that tried to kill me. So yeah, I take it very seriously.
Elon Musk said on his X platform that you're a Fed, that you're a paid-up hire of the government. Is that true?
No.
100. You've never worked for the government in any capacity.
I've never talked to federal law enforcement. And actually, I've testified to that fact under oath when I was subpoenaed by the Congress. People leave that part out. But I got subpoenaed, I think, in January 2022, I think it was. And I was deposed by the subcommittee, the House Select Subcommittee on January 6th. And they asked me, did you speak with any federal law enforcement? And under oath, I said, no, I've never had contact with them. I've never turned over devices. So no, absolutely not.
There's been footage that's come out again this week. This is you at the January the 6th riots. Let's take a look.
We are taking the Capitol. Keep marching and never relax, never relax. Break the barriers, disregard the police. This province belongs to us. The police are separating the Capitol.
You're heard there shouting down your loud hailer, break down the barriers and disregard the police. The Capitol belongs to us now. What did you mean by that?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The Capitol belongs to the people.
Disregard the police. So you don't support law and order?
No, I support law and order. But on that day, the police were brutal. The police killed somebody, Ashley Babbitt. And, they were throwing people off of the rafters. They killed multiple people. So
when disregarding the police is the first step to anarchy, isn't it?
Well, I think the first step to anarchy is when the government rigs the election, which is what happened. That is when the government loses its legitimacy, and its enforcers, consequently, do also.
Well,
that's exactly what happened in 2020.
There's no evidence the government rigged the election. You know that. You're a bright guy.
Well, let's talk about it. Do you want to talk about the election of 2020?
Yeah, I think Trump lost it fair and square. I think he fought the wrong argument about the stolen election. I've said to him, to his face,
I agree.
The argument he should have said is that the deliberate suppression of things like the Hunter Biden laptop scandal from the media, by social media, by big tech, was actually a deliberate attempt to subvert the result of the election. And that's a much better argument because it's undeniable. When the New York Post that had that exclusive were basically shadow banned off all social media for the 2 weeks before the election, that was an absolute disgrace. And if I was Donald Trump, I would focus on that as being my main argument that election was slanted against him. When he goes off into saying that there was widespread rigging and voter systems were wrong, we've litigated all this now through various court cases. Various Republican judges have ruled there was no rigging of that kind. In fact, the American election system is accepted by most people around the world as being one of the best in the world, one of the most reliable. So I just think he fought the wrong argument. If he said the deliberate suppression of damaging stories to the Bidens, which could have swung the election, was outrageous and unacceptable, I'm 100% behind it. But by building this spurious argument that it was all rigged through voting systems and so on, he lost me.
Well, I agree about the voting systems, but when they went into the machines, I think that was ridiculous. However, what has to be accounted for is that in 2016, 35% of the votes were cast by mail. By 2020, it was 70% because of the pandemic. So you doubled the amount of votes that happened by mail. They called it in-person early voting. They called it a variety of different things. And the other thing that they changed is they solicited the mail-in ballots. So they sent ballots to people's houses. And once you do that, I mean, you have absentee balloting normally, but it's a process. You got to give your social security number, your ID. They send it to you. There's regulations in place. This is an election where they double the amount of mail-in votes, and they sent ballots to people's houses. And when you do that, you break the chain of custody. So they send the ballot out, and then they tell people return it at a 24-hour ballot drop site that's unsupervised. There's thousands of them, and they're going to hope that all the ballots that find their way into these drop boxes were filled out by the person that the ballot was intended for. And I know that didn't happen. I'll tell you why. My uncle has been dead for 26 years. He got a ballot in 2020. It was mailed to my parents' house. And that was happening in nursing homes. That was happening in apartment buildings.
But you also know that every independent body that has looked at this has concluded there was no widespread rigging, that it was a free and fair election, and Trump lost. And the bottom line is he should stop going on about it anyway, because he won back the White House in 2024. As you have been so keen to tell me, move on, right? No one wants to look back too far.
That's a separate argument. I mean, you can say that he should stop talking about it, but whether it was rigged or not is actually relevant to what happened on January 6th. Because what happened on J6 is people were outraged about it. People were furious that, by the way, there's never been an independent ballot audit in all the states where there was alleged to be rigging. That has not happened. And certainly it did not happen up until January 6th. And people said, this is ridiculous. They're stealing it.
Honestly, if either you or Donald Trump or anybody else wants to show me, I said this to him when I interviewed him last, if you show me the actual hardcore, incontrovertible evidence, then great. I've never seen it. Joe Rogan asked him. He didn't produce it with Joe Rogan. It's just never been produced. But look, I don't want to label the point on that. So I suppose the more interesting question now, as your influence rises in the conservative movement in America, and there's a lot of splits going on amongst MAGA over a number of issues, and about you, and you know this, is your split with Trump irrevocable? Do you feel now, as we head towards the year of the midterms, that it's time to now look to who his successor will be, and who do you think that person should be?
Well, it's not irrevocable, but I am very pessimistic about this administration. And succession is something that I've been interested in for as long as I've been doing the show. And I think it's very clear that they are grooming J.D. Vance to be that successor. And by they, I mean Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel. There seems to be an organization that was put in place roughly around 2022 when Peter Thiel was very active in the midterm elections. He spent, I think, over $30 million, $15 million for Vance, $15 million for Masters. Spent a lot of money in a lot of other congressional races, trying to unseat the Republicans that voted for impeachment in 21, and also building out a media market, building out a patronage network, funding things like Passage Press, Sovereign House, a number of other projects to create sort of like a self-contained media ecosystem. And Vance is clearly the selected nominee. That is who the interests want. And they've been pushing for him very strongly. So I think he's the heir apparent right now. There's a forceful push. I've heard good things about him. I've heard bad things about him too. And where I think it needs to go is I think we need to return to the message from 2016, what Trump said in the first election, which is we need to drain the swamp. We need to get the money out of politics, the super PACs, the special interests, put America first in foreign policy and the wars, close the border and deport the illegals, and reindustrialize America, bring back manufacturing, bring back jobs. We're in this Cold War with China. We need America to have productive capacity again. We need America to have wealth. So I think whoever is going to bring us back to that, that's who I'm going to support. And I haven't seen enough from Vance yet.
You called J.D. Vance's wife a Jeet. What does that mean?
It's a slur for Indians.
Why would you use that?
Well, you want the honest answer?
Because you're a racist?
No, there's actually a different reason. The reason why I said that, if you watch the whole show, did you watch that whole show?
No, but even if you use that slur, I'm just curious why you would use that about a woman with her heritage.
I'll tell you, there's a really important reason why, and this is why context matters. If you look online at the people that are supporting J.D. Vance the most, they are racist. They're racist also, let's say. And they look at someone like myself. I don't support J.D. Vance. And they say, you're brown. You're a third worldist. They are gleefully participating in the cruelty. You could say the performative cruelty of the Trump administration. They say, you're going back. You have 100 days until you're being deported. You're going into crystal. And then they tell us to vote for J.D. Vance. And so all I did on the show is I said, you have basically racist chuds that post memes about Indians all day on Twitter, memes about third worldists and Palestinians even. But then they want to turn around and support a guy who has said on Twitter, how dare you say I'm racist? I have non-white kids and I'm in an interracial marriage. And all I said is I just said that's a little ironic. I said that's hypocritical. And Vance is going to have to explain to all of his supporters who have gassed him up as the real mass deportation candidate. He's going to have to explain to them what's going on with that. What is with the contradiction?
Because you don't feel any accountability for the millions of young people that will hear you use that slur and think it's fine to use it.
No, I think that's ridiculous.
Okay. Let's take a final break. I come back with a little kind of summary of how you think this interview has gone for you.
Okay.
So you don't miss out. Okay, Nick Fuentes, we've been talking for nearly 2 hours. What is your view of how the interview has gone?
I think it was great. Honestly, I think it was a tough interview. You're a tough interviewer. But I don't think there were surprises. I will not say it was an ambush because it wasn't. I sort of anticipated that you would make some choices about how you wanted it to go, and I was fine with it. So I thought it was terrific.
As a Catholic, you're probably aware the Jerusalem Post has recently called on the Pope to openly condemn you. Would it matter to you if the Pope did? He's an American Pope, obviously.
It would be very disheartening, yes.
Why?
Because he's our spiritual leader. He's the head of the church. He's the vicar of Christ. So if he condemned me, that would be very disheartening. And it would depend upon what he would say exactly. But yeah, I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that
at all. If he condemned you because you've openly admitted to being a racist on this show?
Oh, this racist. I would be disappointed if he said that, because I think that word racist, it means something different to everybody. And so I think that's just silly. I think that's just semantic.
Have you ever been in love in your life?
No, like romantically, no.
Yeah, never.
No.
You think that's part of the problem?
What's the problem?
Why you are the way you are.
Oh, and what's the way I am? What are you trying to say?
I've given people 2 hours of the way you are. You're unashamed about a lot of it.
Ever.
I don't think I have a problem. I think I'm cheerful, boisterous. Look, unlike you, I'm willing to be a little provocative. Well, I guess you're willing to be provocative, but I'm willing to be very provocative, and I'm a free thinker. And I don't like to be tone policed. I don't like to be told about, people are going to tone police and play moral cop about you can't make this joke or you can't make this statement. And I think that's just about being intellectually open. I'm a believer in openness.
I completely agree. I think you should be perfectly free to express yourself exactly how you see fit. My problem is how you see fit with some of the things that you say. And we've been through a lot of them. And I think people who don't know you very well would have been shocked in parts and surprised in other parts. But in totality, they can see you for what you are. I think we've got a lot nearer to what the real Nick Fuentes is in the last 2 hours than we probably have seen from your other recent interviews. Would you agree?
No, I mean, the clip thing, we've done the clip thing. We've all seen the clip show. Everyone's seen the clips. You think you're the first one to do the ADL rap sheet. So here you said this, and then here you said that. I've been playing that game for 10 years. So this is honestly more of the same, to tell you the truth.
Nick Fuentes, I appreciate you coming on Uncensored. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
Well, my thanks to Nick Fuentes, and my thanks to the hundreds of thousands of you watching this special live episode of Piers Morgan Uncensored. As I said during the interview, I think it was firm but fair, but you can all make up your own minds. If you like what you do, please like and subscribe to the channel so that we can keep doing it. I'm back tomorrow. Until then, whatever you're up to, keep it uncensored.
Oh, man. That was a great conversation. That was a great conversation. All right. Exit out of that. All right. Great stream. Well, not stream. I'm so tired. I'm getting my words mixed up. So that was a great episode of today, everyone. I'll be back for the Piers Morgan expose. And I think I was going to have another one. Oh, yeah. Tyler Oliver going to Minnesota to give on-ground coverage of the Somali community. I'm a little tired, so I'm going to get off of here, get some sleep. I'll talk to you guys on the next one. You know what to do. Leave a comment and leave a like. Of course, let me know how you guys feel about today's episode. See you in the next one.